Hello and welcome to the new season of HorsePlayers Happy Hour. Willie Nile sings in that intro song, Lord, give me money. That's what we've done, folks. With the HorsePlayer Happy Hour tour, we are giving away 2 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seats in this interconnected contest that lasts the whole season long. 20 weeks or so is our regular season. 5 weeks will be our playoffs. It wraps up right around Breeders' Cup time. So happy to be here with you and so happy to have so many of you join us. And joining us right now, a man who helped conceive this idea. And I think he's sitting pretty. He's got his master's tips he's following, and he's feeling real good about the support that you, the audience, have given us so far for this year's HorsePlayer Happy Hour tour. It all kicks off today. I'm speaking, of course, about a man from an undisclosed location in New England. He is TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, how are you?
Pete, I'm doing very well. You know, we chatted a little bit before we went live how I'm very not overwhelmed, but I'm so pleased with the turnout that we've had so far with this first week of the contest. And, you know, I kind of said it last week, this whole thing, we think it's a great idea. The folks at the Breeders' Cup and everyone involved, we all believe in it, but really it boils down to, is it a supported idea? And so far, I mean, if this is any indication of what's to come, this is we're off to a heck of a start.
You can still get involved. We've got about, 15 minutes?
Until about 10 roughly.
Okay, 10 minutes to the first contest race. You can check it out. Horseplayers.com is the place to go. You can see all the details right there on screen. $20 to play. And the rake, the VIG, such as it is, being donated to charity. Don't want to bury that lead. That's one of the things I'm most excited about this. It's a great opportunity to raise money for both the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance at tbaftercare.com, whose mission it is to accredit the various horse rescue, horse rehoming organizations. And then you've got our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, the founding partners of the In the Money Media Network, which both Matt and I appear on in our various shows, me on the Players Podcast, he on his eponymous Matt Bernier show. They get those 2 charities get the money. TRF doing fantastic work in finding forever homes for racehorses and also helping people through their Second Chances program. Lots of good stuff there. We want you to get involved. There's still time. You're not stuck yet doing the play all the fours thing. You could probably look through and at least get some sense of connections. Today, we've got 5 from Gulfstream Park, 5th through 8th. Same at Aqueduct, 5th through 8th. This show's going to be a little bit different than many of the others in the series, in that we're going to go longer, which is going to be great fun. It's going to give us a chance to interact with you, the audience, more. I'm absolutely down for doing plenty of Q&A. If you want to ask a question about one of these races and how we're betting, how you're betting, feel free. Pop that in the comments. We want to join in. If you're somebody who didn't catch this show live and is just catching it through the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, no, we're going to be doing these pretty much every week. Look for listings. If you follow me on Twitter at Looms Boldly, if you follow the Breeders' Cup at Breeders' Cup, if you follow Matt at Bernier_Matt, you'll be able to get all the details and join us in future weeks and join the live streams as well, because it's fun to sit here together on a Thursday afternoon. Can you believe it, Matt? Now, 1 year ago, we started what has evolved into this tour as a, for all we knew, it was going to be a one-off. Early days of the pandemic, I remember being very confused and having trouble motivating, frankly, to do much work when somebody came up with the idea of, hey, why don't we do a contest and stream it? And here we are a year later. It just crazy to think how this idea has evolved in that time.
And you would like to think that this is kind of, we're going to see similar things in real life going forward, where, you know, from a terrible situation or a sort of, we're all in sort of a compromising position in the midst of the pandemic, especially early on. And I think people's creativity starts to come out when you have to kind of think a little outside the box. And to your point, you know, we were all just looking for something to occupy our time, something that was, and thankfully, you know, our industry, the horse racing world, kind of continued on in the midst of everything. And it was an opportunity, and we thought it would be nothing more than just a 1 or 2 off sort of thing. And it ended up being something that I think not only I can speak for myself, but I think you as well. I look forward to it every week. It was one of those things that just, again, to kind of get your mind off of the real world aspect of things. But it felt like there were many other folks out there who not only played along, but watched and listened to these little live streams that they really got a kick out of it. And I think it ended up being something that I had a number of people say, we love the happy hour thing. Is it going to come back? And, I assumed it probably would, but we needed to kind of lock things up a little bit. And once we did, I'm so thrilled and excited about the prospect of what's still to come with all of this sort of stuff. And, we're just getting started. We're scratching the surface. This is week 1. And, to your point, those of you listening to the pod or watching it back on YouTube, if you didn't get involved, doesn't mean that you can't get involved going forward. Keep in mind, we take the 8 best scores as far as the tour is concerned. So you have many, many times, many chances to get involved in this thing. Heck, you can wait even until the final 8 weeks. If you're somebody who is really sort of, whatever is going on in your life, you can't wait until, or you can't get involved now. You got to wait a little while. There's still so much time to come, but obviously the sooner you can get involved, the better. And you brought up also the charitable aspect. I think that's really the core root of this whole thing. I mean, again, we've talked about it. Without the horses, we don't have gambling, we don't have contests, we don't have any of this. So the fact that all of this goes to help the aftercare world, I think everything about what we've hopefully done is all trending toward positive things.
Doing what we can to help the protagonists of the sport, the horses. That's extremely important to us at the network and at the Breeders' Cup. And so that is a fantastic element. I also love the fact that this is a great deal for players without having to pay any entry fee to participate in the tour and to have that $20,000 added in the form of the 2 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seats. That's the kind of thing players always say they want. They're voting with their dollars today and telling us it is in fact what they want. Still time, 7 minutes to the first race in the contest, race number 5 at Gulfstream. Go ahead, take another entry if you're watching and are on the fence, or get involved if you hadn't yet. We are getting into it. You probably just have to play all the forest territory. But hey, for 1 week, that's okay. And then you'll get back into it for real and actually sit and grind on these races going forward. Over the course of the next 2+ hours, we're going to look ahead to some racing for this weekend. We'll do an update on the Kentucky Derby picture as well. Looking forward to all that. But right now, with a few minutes to go to this Gulfstream race, why don't we take a little look at that, Matt? How we're going to get things kicked off here. We're looking at race number 5, as we mentioned. We're on the turf, going 1 1/8 for 3 and up maiden 16s. You can see right there on the board, looks to be closely contested between the 3 and the 6, the 3 being Colliery. Curious, Matt, what did you come up with in here?
Honestly, of all the Gulfstream races, this was the one that I thought was perhaps ripe for the picking if you wanted to shop around a little bit, especially from a contest standpoint. Never mind, the late pick 4 or any of these other wagers that you can get involved in. Colliery, I understand why the horse is the favorite. I mean, you get major class relief. You got a bit of an equipment change and had to rally into slow fractions in that most recent race. But I don't see the horse being a complete standout in here, especially at odds of 8-5. I was a little bit more interested in a horse like the 5 Beyond the Call. You're looking at 6-1 right now. This is a horse most recently made a little bit of a move into the hottest part of a race that was on March 6th. And I recognized that was the time. And I think it still kind of continues that you want to be forwardly placed on the grass at Gulfstream. But I thought you were going to get a better price on a horse who, while I don't love that it feels like we've just sort of lived in the high 50, low 60 range from a buyer standpoint, you haven't seen much progression. This one can be forwardly placed, isn't that far off from a numbers standpoint, and should be a better price. So I was kind of leaning toward the 5, but I frankly thought this was a very wide open race.
Like your case on the 5, I think that all makes sense. Another horse at a little bit of a price I think makes sense as an alternative. If I technically had made picks yesterday for this race, I probably would have put Colliery on top. But looking at it now and being able to factor in with odds, that's a great thing. These are pick and pray contests. In other words, you put everything in before the first race. That's great, especially for a Thursday. It's a true picking contest, which I think there's some purity to, which is another thing I really like about this tour. The fact that there's very little barrier to entry from a financial point of view, and it's not about gaming the tournament. It's about picking horses and doing it ahead of time. But even in a pick and pray, you do get to see the odds on the first race, and I think had I put in a selection on Cagliari, I might be going to number 2. Viking Plunder at this point. Simple angle, very wide last time out, going from outside to in, not very far apart on numbers, could trip out. And you know what I might do from a wagering point of view in here, Matt, is bet, just for a little laugh, not a bet to get rich on, but I may bet both of our selections to win and then just play them behind Cagliari in an exacta. So a little win bet on the 2-5. Probably just make it even. They're close enough in odds, and then a little exacta to get the stake back, maybe double up the money if it comes with the obvious favorite 3 over 2-5.
And Pete, I think something you brought up, it's prudent for folks who have played in contests in the past. This probably isn't sort of breaking news, but I'm hopeful we do have some newcomers, some folks who are kind of learning as on the fly as they go. You brought up you get to see the odds for this first race. You actually get to see the odds for the second race as well, because you can take a look and see what's happening at Aqueduct. And while, for the most part, call it 75% of this contest, it will be a pick and pray sort of situation. You do get to see the genuine odds of these first 2 legs. And if you want to take it another step, you can take a look at some of the double probables and try to get an idea of who's going to take the money in the second leg of these doubles. So let's say it would be race 6 at Gulfstream and race 6 at Aqueduct. And at least that way you can kind of get a feel for something. And then if you're really trying to sort of, I don't want to call it reverse engineering because that would imply that the races are already done. But if you're trying to figure out a way to plot out your plan, if you like prices down in the back half of the races or the back half of the contest or vice versa, you think it's kind of chalky, maybe you want to do something else here. I just think you have an opportunity early on in these pick and prays to glean as much information as possible, knowing that down the road, it's probably going to be a little bit dark and you get into sort of the proper pick and pray piece.
That's a great point about using the double probables, and that can cut both ways. If one of the races you're looking at happens to be a maiden race, you could be looking for signs of life in a runner, and you want to see the horse get bet. Or you might take a look at the double right here. The 3-2 double is only $10, and the 3-5 is 16. Maybe you're saying to yourself, those horses are going to be so bet in this 6th race at Gulfstream. Maybe I want to go for a little bit more of a price in there. That might, I was sort of torn between 2 horses to use in Gulfstream race 6. That might tilt me towards the longer shot, seeing just how bet it looks like Florado is going to be in that spot. But that's a really good point that you bring up. Now, Matt, I know you've played, obviously we're not eligible for the tour piece of this. We are, to my understanding, eligible to follow the traditional route. And that shouldn't get lost in all this.
Exactly.
Maybe this is a host fail. In addition to the tour piece of this is a regular $20 feeder that feeds into the qualifier on Saturday. That I believe we would be eligible for. Are you participating today, or do you plan to participate throughout the season? I just got lost today. I got a little behind. I was going to put in an entry and plotted it out, but didn't actually throw it in there. How about you?
I did not, and to your point, we kind of laid it out. We're ineligible for this piece of it, but we would technically be eligible to qualify into the Saturday contest. I just still feel like, you know what, if you and I are going to be here doing this, or I can only speak for myself, if I'm going to be here kind of going through the races on a week-to-week basis, I'm probably going to steer clear of that pool. That's not to say that I won't get involved with other contests that sort of run up alongside of ours. But I just figure from a presentation standpoint and also logistically, you know what, we'll just try to hopefully pump as many people into this thing as possible. And for this year, I'll sit out. I'll just kick back and root on everybody else that gets involved.
It makes sense. And that doesn't mean we can't wager. It
Correct.
might give us more of an opportunity to talk about how we're approaching some of these races. And we'd love to hear from other folks. We have some notes coming in already. Matthew, hello out there. And Joe playing a super key 6 with 2, 3, 5, 8. Love the idea of shouting out your bets and following how you're doing as these races progress on a Thursday afternoon. and they're getting ready to break here at Gulfstream. I suppose we'll talk. We didn't production meeting in the middle of the show. We'll talk over these races. That's what we did last year, right?
Yeah, might as well. And we got a little bit of a steady early on from the 3 collieries. So your heavy favorite is going to be spotting the field about 15 lengths, it looks like, the leader anyway.
That's not bad for us.
I was going to ask you just from a handicapping standpoint, what do you mile and an eighth for 16 maidens? I mean, this is for many of these horses, this is going to be the longest kind of race they'll ever encounter. I mean, how do you typically approach a race like this?
I do think mile and an eighth can be one of those distances like that plays like longer than it is. I was talking about this on this week's Stronach 5 show with Andrew Rosinski this morning about how the difference between 7 and 6 can play like more than a furlong. I do think sometimes that can also be the case with turf racing, just between a mile and a 16th and a mile and an eighth. To be honest, I didn't reckon too much of it into my handicapping in this race. Part of that is Gulfstream, which can play in a way that will, allow horses without all that much stamina to be able to get their maximum distance. But it probably would have been a good thing to pay a little bit more attention to as both our horses are getting okay trips here. I think we got a chance for one of us to make some noise if we can, especially if we can keep that 6 boxed in. We'll see what happens here as they get ready to turn in.
Yeah, and this 4 rolling up on the outside at a big price has got some run. So many of these races, especially low-level maiden claimers, I would rather be forward than coming from off of it. I mean, this is the sort of result, though, if this hangs on, that's going to blow this thing up immediately.
I joked about playing all the 4s. Let's see if that strategy might be the winning one today. But this 8 is laying it down perfect enough. Looks to me like going to get there right at the wire. But still, I mean, look at this exacta.
That's a healthy exacta.
8-4 to kick things off. There's a perfect opportunity. We'll see how many people end up having either of these big long shots. What a funny way to get things started. But you get points for top 10 finishes. And it's sort of like the old, what we used to call rotisserie baseball, now fantasy baseball, but they still use roto for roto scoring, which comes from the original. And it's basically you finish first, you get 10 points, you finish 10th, you get 1 point. Matt, I'm glad you pushed us in that direction because it's so much easier to explain on these video casts, as it were. So much appreciated. I just got a note actually from the editor of In the Money Plus that the 4 was playable on Thorograph figures, and he actually used. So really? Tyler will be up there with a place cap. I look at the Thorograph stuff from time to time. I'm much more of a daily racing form, time form US handicapper. But hey, we'll see. I know that's a tool a lot of people use. If a bunch of people have this 4, that's going to probably end up being why. So let's we'll see when we'll get a leaderboard here in a few minutes. Meanwhile, don't want to get caught out. There's just 7 minutes to race 5 at Aqueduct. We'll make sure we leave a second to talk about that. Let's see.
For what it's worth, if anybody had that, I think you're looking at north of $1,000 for the exacta.
It gotta be, right?
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm seeing, some of the they basically are capping some of these $1 exactas at $4.99, depending on what ADWs you're looking at. Typically, unless you have the one that tells you exactly what it looks like, that's going to be over that. So for $2, you're looking at north of $1,000, which is, and honestly, with 14 to 1 over 60 to 1, it's probably even more than that.
It's going to be fun to see. Looking back, redboarding this race real quick, we heard that there was apparently a Thorograph angle on the 4 Tone Feeling. What about this winner, number 8, Perfect Enough? I was not smart enough to come up with this runner.
No, and it's one of many faults that I have from a handicapping standpoint. When I see a horse who is 0 for 28, I just right, wrong, or indifferent, even if they stack up on figs, I just kind of chalk it up and say I don't think they have the will to get the job done. Maybe they just like, and I mean, I've talked about it in the past. They're herd animals still. Some horses like to just kind of run with the pack, and others like to go on with it. I like, this is not a result that I was ever going to have. But good on you if you did. And, I do think at least with the 4, if you really wanted to look at it, there was no pace to run at the most recent run, got out of the gates poorly. That was the first start off of a couple-month layoff. Maybe if you want to just say draw a line through it, I suppose it's not an impossible angle to have at $1,000,000 to 1. But again, the horse was just rather slow on figs.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I do notice you mentioned that 1.125 angle. And it is notable to see that among the best lifetime races was a 1.125. And then I can make the excuse last time just had absolutely no chance stalking time form fractions that were coded blue to the third and fourth call. Tyler just chimed in that he did notice that thing about that the best race for the 8 was at 9 furlongs. But I mean, hey, in a contest situation where you thought that we all thought the favorite was over bet. If somebody had proposed the horse, I would have said that's one that I would have said I can see it if I squint.
For sure.
The squinting would have been needed, but not one I was clever enough to come up with. I think we should hop over to Aqueduct with 4 minutes to post there, Matt. Talk about that race real quick, and then we'll loop back here and we'll examine what the exacta pays, and we'll do our first leaderboard look, see how many people had the 8 or the 4. But very quickly, we will move on to Aqueduct race number 5 on the inner turf, going a mile for 3 and up starter allowance types. I thought that the 3 Road to Meath looked like the best speed. I don't mind the switch to Weaver at all. I thought this one might have been on the wrong part of the track. Back in January at Aqueduct, that was when the inside wasn't so good before it flipped in February and the inside got so good. I thought Road to Meath looked pretty strong in this spot, and I feel like 5-2 is an okay price. What about you?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't expect you to get this sort of price on this horse. I thought we would probably be going south of 2-1 as opposed to north of it, and maybe we still will.
Maybe we will.
Yeah, taking a look at some of the double will pays. When I first went through the race, I thought Road to Meath was going to be difficult to deal with. Timeform US has indicated that this is a race that there isn't a ton of speed. And again, with these lower level horses, especially at the condition claiming level, non-winners of 3 lifetime, I like to look for those forwardly placed types. So for me, going into it, I thought the one Inside Info, granted the 2 most recent runs have not been anything that you want to really get excited about. But to be fair, the most recent start, you effectively had a horse that was wrapped up after showing speed and fading. That was off a lengthy layoff. And then prior to that, you had a horse who did no real running at a much tougher level, and that preceded a lengthy layoff. So I wanted to just kind of try to can you squint and see what I'm trying to get at here with the run 3 starts back? That 75 buyer, I think that fits really well in here. This is a horse who can be forwardly placed, if not outright on the lead down on the inside for Linda Rice's barn. You get the 5-pound bug aboard, and I look at the price. Now, again, if you're somebody who is analyzing the tote and where the money is or isn't, maybe it's not a good thing that this horse is 11-1, but I was interested in Inside Info a little bit.
I think he's just getting lost, honestly. I mean, there are angles here that I really like. I like second off the long layoff. And as horrific as that race result looks the last day, it was off a long layoff. It was against better. And, you like to dismiss horses who do no running. Inside Info did a little running, precious little, but, was up there second into a Timeform US fraction, coded red, of a 126. This horse has license to run better in a race that has no speed. Now, I was thinking that Road to Meath would be able to prove to be the better speed and dismiss Inside Info. But if Road to Meath isn't the same horse or whatever, that horse is off a layoff 2 today, that 83-day layoff. I can definitely see it. That's a horse I would absolutely accept as a backup in this spot. So yeah, I'm interested, and I'm very interested in the price. It's hard to know. I mean, this is Linda Rice horses. I would say they will typically catch money when live. Right. I'm not going to say it's a completely neutral sign that the horse is not taking money. It's probably a little negative, but it's not relevant because the price is so good. You know what I'm saying?
I think the other piece, too, that was intriguing for me, you brought up that this horse was taking on tougher. I mean, this horse has been in state-bred N1X races for the better part of 6 months, 7 months. You go back to the last time this one was in a claiming event. Granted, it was against non-winners of 2 life, but it was a gate-to-wire score. So, there's a part of me, and it is one of those angles that I think perhaps when you see horses who have been defeated time and time again against considerably tougher, they unfairly sort of garner or gain the reputation as a loser. Well, maybe they're just simply way overmatched, and now you drop them into a level where they actually do fit. I think that at least becomes a more intriguing proposition. But you brought up the thing that I was most concerned about, is that it feels like when Linda's horses are live, they usually take money. And with this one being as chilly as he is on the tote board, it made me think twice. But having said that, when you see a 10-to-1 shot who has the sort of angles that I think you and I are both seeing, whether you like the horse or not, that's your prerogative, but we at least see the angles, and that's all I ever look for. You know, somebody can bring up a horse that they like and they're telling me why. That's all I care about. I just want to know, why do you like the horse? I may not agree with you, but I just want to know why. That's the angle here with this one, and I'll be very curious to see how Cardenas ends up riding this one.
I'm interested as well to see. You got to get the position going forward from down there at the rail, but I think maybe a stalk and pounce trip as opposed to just trying to gun with Road to Meath in there might work better. But who knows? Maybe the best chance is to just gun and hope for the best. We'll see what his decision is there. I'll say this about the Linda Rice betting angle we were talking about. That would be much more likely to put me off like a lukewarm bet favorite than it would a horse who's a price. You
Sure.
know, like what we would call, what we used to call in the day, a lobster, the horse who's supposed to be bet but isn't. Now, sometimes they win anyway. It's not magic, but I do think there's some signal in staying away from horses who are supposed to be bet, who aren't being bet. And it's a good point about the career maiden. I will not hold it. You know, let's say a horse is 0 for 14, but today is their first day against maiden claimers. I'm not holding that against that horse at all. I'm
Agreed.
just going to say that horse is what the numbers say. The tougher thing about our horse in the last race, Tone Phelan, is this is a horse who'd raced repeatedly at the maiden 16 and gotten beat. You know, you can pick those little bits of form and come up with the case as a few people did, but it makes it much tougher pill for me to swallow. Let's say where we are in the contest. We had, it looks like 31 entries hit that first winner, which is pretty darn good. Can't shout them all out. That would be boring. But I will say that we had a few people play it on 2 entries, including Ryan McCarthy. Good to see that name on the leaderboard. Bruce Meyer, and friend of the show. He might have played in as many of these horse player happy hours as anybody. Your old castmate, Michael Baychuk. What do you hear from Baychuk lately?
I haven't talked to Mike in a while, but yeah, to your point, he's doubled up here. Bruce Meyer's doubled up on this one. I see Danny Kaye, Dan Kovaleski is involved. I mean, there's a number of the usual suspects, the usual names that we were accustomed to seeing last year, and also some fresh faces, some names that I'm not particularly familiar with. So it's good to see that nice little blend early on. And I think it goes to show too, say what you will, I know so many people that aren't involved in sort of the tournament aspect of things. You can't overstate the fact that 10% of this contest had that horse. And that's impressive.
It is amazing. It is amazing. All right, we're off at Aqueduct. We'll button up everything else after we get a chance to talk about this. Looks like Cardenas, who broke half a step slow, is then going ahead and gunning to the lead. We'll see if he pays for those exertions late. Road to Meath taking that stalking position, sliding through into second. Wow, Road to Meath got hammered into 6-5 late. So just the price at best, I'm going to say, on Road to Meath in this scenario. I mean, you're pretty loose. You're not not running in the most comfortable of styles here, but are you happy with where you are?
Yeah, and especially even with the step slow start, I would rather you just hustle the horse and try, again, use your speed to your advantage. If the horse isn't good enough, so be it. But I'd rather you go out using your asset, your best advantage, which is the speed. And in this case, look, it looks like the horse is starting to back up, but I have no problem with the ride. The horse broke a little flat-footed.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's just easier than what I was proposing. Meanwhile, though, Road to Meath has a lot of work to do because Dr. Devereux's Way looks to have, briefly looked to have seized control there. Road to Meath fighting on gamely down at the inside, and Devereux having some trouble switching his feet here as we get into deep stretch. Meanwhile, we've got the 2 and the 5 closing. Devereux, I think, finally switch there late.
Yeah, and finally got over.
And is going to get the win with Road to Meath hanging on there for second. So a little bit a mild upset, I guess we can call that. What price did Dr. Dever's Way go off at in the end?
9 to 1. And you know what? You and I had 2 of the 3 horses that projected to be forwardly placed in this paceless race. The one we didn't have was the winner.
We tangled just enough. We tangled just enough to set up. It's a funny thing where maybe that slow break on your 1 actually kind of changed the pace scenario, because at that point, Cardenas had to hit the button, and what a good ride! What a good ride that was on the 6 on Dr. Dever's Way to get the job done here by Hernandez and getting the Cantermasis into the winner's circle for their super important owner Robert Amendola here in Aqueduct's 5th race. So we'll have a new leaderboard in a second. We'll mention that we had 284 entries in the end. That's pretty cool. We can say that 6 people had that cap horse in the first race. So just 6, not a crazy number. Definitely the winner, way more populous, and none of them played all the 4s. Everybody just had that horse. It's kind of cool for those who don't know. In these pick and pray events at horseplayers.com, you can see what everybody played the rest of the way, which is kind of fun because you can really follow along and know what's going on and know what your chances are when you're drawing live. Producer Craig rolling it up there on the screen right now, so you can see everything going on. It's a neat feature on horseplayers.com, which is, of course, the qualifying home of the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge and also the qualifying home of the National Horse Players Championship. People now qualifying for the event that's going to take place in early 2022. The 2021 event going to be happening in late August out in Vegas. I probably won't make that one because of Saratoga, etc. But I'm already eagerly looking forward to the horse player party that awaits in early 2022 out there in Vegas. If you want to win your way in, a lot of ways to do so. I think one of the best might be coming up this weekend at Keeneland. We should give a little bit of love to the Grade 1 Gamble and Jim Goodman, who runs as good a contest as anybody. This is one of the major events throughout the year. You still have an opportunity. I think you still have an opportunity, maybe even still one more chance to qualify on the sister site of horseplayers.com, horsetourneys.com, but you can also just buy your way in. For all the details about the Grade 1 Gamble, you can go to inthemoneypodcast.com/Keeneland. We created a little pretty link that'll send you right there. You've played in the Grade 1 Gamble before, Matt?
I have not, actually.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't played in any event at Keeneland yet. Now, I mentioned it last week. I'm still someone who tries to sort of weasel their way in through the feeder system as opposed to ponying up the cash. So oddly enough, I'm in the midst of, and this will be a little bit of a free plug for our friends Scott Carson and Chris Larmy over at Sport of Kings. I'm involved in their sort of Keeneland spring contest. The winner gets an entry into their fall event. So I'm still, fingers crossed, hopefully I can get something out there. But Keeneland, if you've never been, and especially, again, bringing up somebody like Jim Goodman, who's as good as there is just as a human being, he's just a great guy. Keeneland's Keeneland. There's really no other way to put it. It's a fantastic. I was actually fortunate. I got to play golf with somebody the other day, and they happened to be horse racing fan, and
nice.
They brought up Saratoga, and we were chatting about that. And I said, if you've never been to Keeneland, but you've been to Saratoga, to me, they're 1A and 1B. They're simpatico. They're the same idea, the same concept, where you have a beautiful landscape and you've got the best of the best as far as racing goes. You just happen to be in New York and Kentucky, different areas. So, look, if you've never been involved, you've never been to Keeneland, I would strongly encourage you to try to get down there. And especially if you're down there, might as well try to get involved in one of these contests.
It's great advice, and I agree. Though that's my 1 and 1A. I defer to Saratoga. I mean, I have a house there, and it's really one of the places that deepen my love for the game. But Keeneland, a very special place, the seat of the breeding industry in New York. And international viewers who might be tuning in and watching this, I can't recommend highly enough. Circle that on your calendar. Maybe the 2022 Breeders' Cup would be a very smart place to target. You can see there on your screen, we've got our new leaderboard, and 7280, the top score. We've got 4 people tied for that one. Let's shout them out. We've got Truls Angus Bretson. We've got John Massian. We've got Jonathan Cummings, and we've got Ciaran Thornton in those top spots. Tour points, remember, will go to the players finishing in the top 10 positions. Lots of, as you mentioned, it's a great blend of very familiar contest names as well as some names I'm not familiar with. Maybe people attracted by this new concept. Long way to go in this first official points gaining HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour event. And Matt and I will be here with you for, gosh, it's probably another hour and 45. Time's flying by, I must say, as we head into this next race at Gulfstream. Unless there's anything else to button up from the Aqueduct performance there that we just saw from Dr. Dever's way.
No, I think for the four of you who have correctly identified both of the winners, I mean, there's no small feat there. You got a 14-1 shot and a 9-1 shot. So off to a good start. But I think it does go to show, especially for folks who have never played in a contest before or are relatively new to it, no lead is safe. No lead is safe. You got a long way to go.
You can bet on that. I mean, you might be feeling a little comfortable at this point. Thursday afternoon racing, not known for producing the prices, but as we've seen so far, there are exceptions to that, and it makes sense that New York with grass racing back and the chaos that can ensue from that. Nobody even has guaranteed tour points yet, but the top four are looking real good.
Oh, absolutely. You'd like to think that you'll be able to hang around for a piece at the very least and get some points. But, with theoretically only 25% of the contest done, who knows? Somebody goes on a heater here, picks up a couple of wins, couple of place prices. You never know. Things can kind of get dicey here.
I'm going to make a call on the fly. We've got 10 minutes to race 6 at Gulfstream. So why don't we pop in some other content? Why don't we talk about the Kentucky Derby scene at large? I was of the view that the Bluegrass Stakes from last weekend sure looked to me like it's going to be a key piece of form heading into this race. On paper, we described it as a bit of a two-horse run between Essential Quality and Highly Motivated. That's how it played out. But you in particular, Matt, were somebody I wanted to ask about this because I've noticed you've been doing such a great job covering all these Triple Crown preps on the Matt Bernier Show. I recommend to everybody to you can basically pick the race you want to hear what Matt's thoughts were about, and then just go to the first Matt Bernier Show after it happened, and you're going to get a detailed look at his view. And you're so good, particularly, we were talking about it before, with the lead changes and what they might mean. I thought there were two really interesting tidbits with lead changes late in the Bluegrass, and I wanted your take on them. In the case of Highly Motivated, it was the flipping back to the wrong lead late, which to me suggested a horse that maybe doesn't want to go any farther than that. But then it was also interesting that Essential Quality kind of took a while to get back to get on the correct lead in the stretch. It didn't bother me, but I was just curious as somebody who pays more attention to this and is better at this game than I am, what you thought those lead change issues might have, I don't even want to call them issues, but what those lead changes might mean going forward. This is the kind of subtle thing that you can apply your own subjective thought to, and it's not just there in the paper for everybody to see, and maybe a way we can get a little bit of an edge when it comes to betting this year's Kentucky Derby.
Well, we'll start with Highly Motivated. To me, I was dubious going into it about his ability to get 9 furlongs. I was wrong about that on Saturday anyway. He finished very, very well, but to your point, about the final 16th of a mile, he was on his left lead, and I know he galloped out right there every step with Essential Quality, but there's a part of me that looks at that race and says, that is the ideal scenario for a horse like Highly Motivated to be able to get 9 furlongs. Not a ton of pace pressure, slow pace in general, and you're the one actually cutting out the fractions. When you think about the likelihood of that playing out the first Saturday in May, you got to go an extra 1/8 of a mile. There's going to be other proper speed in there. You're not going to make the front, and if you do, you're certainly not going to be able to see out the distance, in my opinion. I just think there are many more obstacles for him to have to overcome at 10 furlongs. In my opinion, long-term view, he is going to end up being a crack 7/8 one-turn miler. And I was wrong about his chances on Saturday. I didn't like him really much at all because I just thought he was going to find the distance too difficult. But all things considered, I thought he acquitted himself very well. As far as the Derby goes, I don't love his chances. I would be fading him pretty heavily. As far as Essential Quality goes, I alluded to it on the podcast on Monday. he drifted out a little bit and was looking out at the grandstand. And again, I'm splitting hairs. I think you're supposed to be splitting hairs, though, when you're looking at very short prices, headed into a 20-horse field, going 1.25 miles for the first time. I recognize people saying, well, come on, you're really trying to stretch it here. I am. I'm acknowledging that, but you're supposed to do that because these can portend and be sort of precursors to things that may end up happening down the road. To your point, a little bit late with sort of getting over to that right lead. When he's looking out at the grandstand, I've never seen him do that before. And he drifted out a hair. Now, I had a number of people tell me it was Saez intentionally sort of pulling him out away from highly motivated. I'm not sure why he would do that. Do I love it? No. But at the same time, I put it this way. I'm less concerned about his ability at 10 and sort of his professionalism than I am highly motivated in the Derby.
It was probably just about the first time Essential Quality ever saw human beings in the stand.
Yeah.
Maybe that threw him off.
I do think that is part of it. I mean, factor that in. And I've gone on record. I've said it about last year's Derby. If things were run sort of normal, where it was a race in May and you had fans, I would be willing to bet quite a bit of money that Authentic would not have won the Derby because at that time, mentally, he wasn't there. It took him a little while to put it all together. And some horses mature faster than others do. It's no different than humans. And he was, I think, the beneficiary of things that happened last year, where in September with the Derby, with no fans, he was a much more polished project or much more polished runner at that point than he would have been the first Saturday in May. So I think you have to factor all these things in. And it doesn't mean I won't pick Essential Quality in the Derby. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I think you're supposed to look for anything that's a little bit different than what we've become accustomed to seeing from these horses.
I think that's a good point, especially when you're looking at a group of horses that's so tight on figures. I think it pays all the more to be a little bit skeptical, maybe is too strong, but a little critical, looking for those flaws and at the same time, looking for those reasons to maybe get behind a horse who's a little bit of a longer price. We'll talk more about the Derby as the show goes on. For right now, I want to say hi to Sil, who also says we should give some shout outs to the Canadian horsemen out there and the love they need right now with the disappointing news that Woodbine's starting date going to be pushed back. A shame that racing's become a bit of a political football in Ontario. We're hoping that the Woodbine meet gets started soon. Great racing up there, and really looking forward to getting back there, hopefully for the Queen's Plate, which has been moved to August, and also would love to get there for their big day in September. That this year, not just the Woodbine Mile with Breeders' Cup Mile implications, but also with the Canadian International going then, maybe that becomes a key prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf. It's going to be really fun. We're going to be doing a lot with Woodbine this season. I thank you, Sil, for mentioning to shout out to them. We'll say hi. We'll say hi to Joe from New York. We'll say saludos back to Augustine checking in. Feel free. Drop us a comment. Tell us where in the world you're listening. We had some good, diverse crowd from countries all over the world last week. Let's see if we can do that again. We've got 3 minutes to go, Stray Matt. Let's head over there. We're on the dirt going 5.5, 3 and up. Fillies and mares. Claimers, non-winners of 2 lifetime, 12-5 down to 10. And we've got a significant favorite. Just the odds are bouncing all over the place with this Florado. Was 3-5, was 6-5, now evens. Are you with her or against her?
Yeah, I'm with. I think that most recent score, the maiden breaker, I thought was every bit as good as anything else anybody in this field is capable of accomplishing. I think this horse is the controlling speed. And I think the other sneaky piece is, trying to use the double will pays as a barometer, trying to gauge who is going to be what sort of price. I think the 2 is going to tick up a little bit more, not a lot, but maybe you get up to 7-5 and maybe the 5 comes down to 2-1. And if I'm just looking at those 2 head to head based on the running style and based on how fast they have run to date, I would rather take 7-5 on the 2 than 2-1 on the 5. I think they are strictly the horses to beat in here. I would probably be inclined to be looking at a cold exacta of 2-5 in here and say it's just going to be a merry-go-round. Whoever makes the front is going to go on with it, and whoever sits is going to finish second.
I could see it for sure. If I was making paper picks yesterday, I'd have put Florado up there, best speed look in a race where that should play well. Claimed by the Nodas. We know all about them in New York and the success that they've had off the claim. I have just a silly, I was hoping this horse would be double digits, but I'm still going to take a little bit of a shot with guessing with number 4, Pink Fizz. This is the type of horse who collects trips the way that I collect vinyl records, as you can see behind me. They're everywhere. Just to run through a few. Bad break last time out. Inefficient middle move, 2 back. Drops the jock, 3 back. I can't conjure an excuse for every one of the bad races, but if you go back, there are some decent ones. This horse may be double digits by the time they pop. I'm just a little bit interested to play the 4 to win. I'll cover in the exacta 2-5 with 8, and I'll do just to get the money back type bet 2-5 with 2-5 with 8 in the spot as well. I said 8, I meant 4. I did that thing JK talks about where you say the odds, instead of the number. The horse I'm interested in is the 4 Pink Fizz, currently 8 to 1, hopefully 10s by the time the gates pop here in about 1 minute's time. I wouldn't be surprised if you're right though, if they just run around there 1-2, the favorites.
I do think though with Pink Fizz, you take a look, you go through, not only has this horse run reasonably fast for the level, but you bring up that run 3 starts back where you dumped the rider. That was the only start in a condition claiming event. Otherwise, we've been dealing with open claiming companies. So now maybe you finally do get an opportunity at the non-winners of 2 life level with, let's hope, fingers crossed, some sort of a cleanish trip. This is going to be the lowest level this horse has ever run at as far as winners are concerned. So if you're looking at right now a $16 proposition, if you're not sold on the 2 chalks in here, I think that horse has is just as good a chance as anyone to get involved.
That's a good old school claiming angle that you rarely hear talked about anymore, that I think I picked up in a Jim Quinn book or a Dick Mitchell book back in the day. That idea that a horse racing at a new low level, there's an opportunity to wake up there maybe a little bit more than the paper would suggest and the raw figures and form would suggest. So I'm glad that idea came up. And yeah, the horse is flashing between 7s and 8s. The favorite back to odds on 4 to 5. It still could. The prices still could converge. It's been an unusual betting pattern with the kind of back flashing and going back in on that too. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's usually, it definitely looks a little bit different than it typically does. Horse is surely live, big 4 to 5 favorite. We'll see if Pink Fizz can maybe find a way to get in the mix, or if you can get your potential 2-5 exacta in here as well.
I think also just keep an eye on the break. I mean, I feel like especially going 5.5, it's just so critical. You got to get out of there in good order. You can't afford to sort of spot the field a length or two because, simply put, there's just not enough time for you to make that up.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens here when they pop, getting ready in the gate at Gulfstream. I envy my Sky Sports Racing announcer presenting colleagues. At this point, they just say, "And here's Pete Aiello," and then they get a 2-minute break.
Let's see. I think they're all loaded. I think they're all loaded, waiting to push the button.
There they are. Let's see what happens here. More pace on, or at least more competition for the lead than I think I saw on paper. But we'll see how it shakes out here in a minute. Pink Fizz last, but I don't know. Hopefully they're going fast enough that she'll have time to make a little bit of a run. 2 kind of just chasing and not where you want to be with your odds on shot.
No, I mean, and just got, simply put, outrun out of the gate. A bit of a surprise to me. I figured she was going to be able to streak out to the front from here. She's got a world of work to do. She's starting to pick up. Oh, that's the 4. Here you come at Pink Fizz.
Yeah, maybe this Pink Fizz can get in the race here if these others have a little bit of trouble seeing it out. That's a little bit wide to be coming, but at the same time, I think
you got the momentum though.
Yeah, you're not going to get stopped out there. Just see if you can finish your race, Pink Fizz.
Change leads.
Yeah, change and finish.
And she's hanging on the left lead. Oh, there you go. Just popped over. That's going to be enough. Go.
Come on, let's see if we can get up by the wire. It's going to be tight. I think we're going to fall just short here.
Yeah, just short.
And I didn't bet it right. I didn't respect Nicole Princess enough. Should have thought about that scenario of hey, maybe if the 2 speeds that you were sort of seeing it with the merry-go-round in mind, maybe it would have been smart to see a scenario where those horses weren't able to do that and come up with something else clever. No great loss in the end. Pink Fizz did get bet into 6 to 1. I mean, that's probably just the price. I feel like I was on the right horse, and I'm not mad about the going wide. I mean, like you said, the horse had momentum, and if she was good enough, she would have won. But wouldn't have been horrible to see to save a little bit more ground around the turn and then tip out. But hindsight 2020, and I don't ride these beasts, and an ambulance doesn't follow me to work, so I'm not going to complain too much.
The Antonio Sano exacta. How about that? 41. Simple as that. Antonio Sano, I think still one of the more underrated trainers down there in Florida.
He wins, and he knows what to do when he gets a good horse. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen that movie. We've seen that movie before, and his backers will get, fans will get a nice little exacta there. The reverse Tom Seaver, the old 1-4.
I mean, look, this is an interesting situation going forward because with a horse like Florado, maybe I fell a little bit, took the cheese in the fact that this horse broke the maiden in the most recent run. And, you do go back and look at it. The pace wasn't that fast. So maybe if all of a sudden you take on a little bit more heat early on, you can't go on with it. All things considered, though, I mean, we were dealing with effectively two horses that came from just off the pace who took advantage. So I don't know that it would have made a great deal of difference if she were able to have gone out there and actually contested the lead early on. She was just outrun, and frankly, it wasn't very good. Bad opinion on my part.
Well, it's tough, and at this level, especially, you see some horses that just don't run to any resemblance of their form, and I think that's what happened there. Obviously, it's a new barn too, so like you just never know. You think it could be a positive or at least a neutral, but sometimes somebody's got the touch with a horse, and then it doesn't continue. So it's tricky to say. Nicole Princess returning 7-2 with Pink Fizz in second at 6s. We'll see in a minute what that does to our leaderboard. Have you been watching much baseball yet this season, Matt?
Yeah, well, especially for me. I mean, I put out a tweet the other day, and I'm sure you'll chuckle at this. It felt like we have a lot of family members that live in Brooklyn that are Mets fans. And obviously I live in New England. We're all, for the most part, Red Sox fans. And the Mets lost their opener when Jacob deGrom spun another brilliant game, and, they coughed it up. The bullpen did. And the Sox opened up 0-3. And people up here, you would have thought after the past, let's call it the 60-game season last year and the tail end of 19, people up here are saying, they're an absolute embarrassment, yada, 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 which is fine. I think a lot of people are still really ticked off about the whole Betts thing. That's a story for another day. And all I said was put it all into perspective. They're 0-3 and they're playing 162 games. They've played 2.5% of their season. I'm not going to freak out. And by the way, the first two games, they were in both of those games against Baltimore. I think everyone just really went over the top when they got their doors blown off on Easter Sunday. All they do then is come back and sweep the Rays. And now we got an afternoon game. I think that started. I haven't even seen the score. I don't have it on the TV here. But point is, I think this is a decent team. They're not going to be great. I think I would love them to be 81-81 this year. I think at least starting to kind of build whatever the next iteration of this team is going into next year. I'd be thrilled with that. And as far as the Mets are concerned, look, I get it. I would be as frustrated as anyone with all the sort of unfortunate luck that deGrom has had over the past few years. But I still think that is arguably the team to beat in the NL East. I know the Braves are off to a slow start. They're going to come around at some point as well. But between those two, and if you want to throw Washington into the mix, I don't see any reason to be hitting the panic button the first week of the season.
No. The only grit. Well, first things first. You clearly, both of us clearly need more screens because both of our teams are playing, and we don't have it on.
I got to pull it up here.
Don't
mind me standing up.
Do it. Throw that on. And then as for the overreacting and the catastrophizing, I can only think of one group of human beings who is better at catastrophizing and seeing the worst in situations than baseball fans. You want to take a wild guess what that is, Matt?
Got to be horse.
That's horse.
Got to be. It had to be. There was only one answer.
Exactly, and I'm sure people out there who agree. We have a question. Question from Jonathan just came in. Has been wanting to upgrade Derby horses that have been more mature acting. This 2-year-old crop grew up without fans and have had kind of a comparatively abnormal racing career start. Does that give you more hope for a horse that's shown super professionalism when it and maybe even competed in front of fans when it comes to a race like this year's Derby? What do you think, Matt?
I think it has to. I mean, and I talk about it a lot, and I guess it's one thing if you have a perfectly professional horse that's just simply too slow. But among the main players, I mean, you have to factor in that in a race like the Derby, you can't get away with being goofy. You can't get away with expending energy that you're going to need for that stretch run. They're all going to be tired, but you got to be able to kind of keep your mechanics and your wits about you. Otherwise, you could potentially lose your race. And that's part of the reason I'm so anal about looking at lead changes and how the horse is reacting and looking at their ears and just the body language in general on the track. I don't have the eye that you do for the paddock observations, but on the track during a race, I can tell when a horse is comfortable. I can tell when a horse is feeling good. And when they're doing things professionally from a mechanical standpoint. And I don't think that should be overlooked. So I think Jonathan has a very good point, and I think it's something that more people should factor in. I don't care how fast you are. If you're doing it in a way that I think at some point it's going to come back to bite you, I'm going to make note of that. And conversely, if you're doing everything the way you're supposed to, I think of a horse like Midnight Bourbon. Right now, he's not the sexiest horse. He's not the fastest. He hasn't won all the big races, this, that, and the other. He's professional. He goes out for a good barn in Steve Asmussen. He's not that far off from a speed figure standpoint, and he's run well at Churchill in the past. He at least ticks a lot of boxes that I'm not going to look at it on the first Saturday in May and say, I'm afraid he's going to lose his race because he's doing something goofy. If he loses, because he's probably just got beat by a better horse. But I don't have to worry about, is he going to do something wild looking out at the grandstand or anything like that.
We're going to come back to this because I think it's an interesting excuse to talk a little bit about Greatest Honor for reasons I will explain, who, of course, is off the Derby trail. But with only 4 minutes at the Big A, I think we should head back over there. We've got a 6 furlong dirt race, optional claiming 62, non-winners of 2 lifetime. I had originally wanted to oppose Big Engine in this spot and was happy to do so with Montauk Traffic. But with that runner out and plenty of speed still signed on here, I think Big Engine might just be too good for these in the spot and just get the right kind of trip. I could tell you a little story about the one Honor Up. I was hoping for a better price. But before I tell my story, what did you like in here in terms of a top pick, Matt?
Oh, please do, because I like Honor Up a little bit. I look at a horse like this and say that first start coming back off the lengthy layoff, caught a wet track, and I know he's run well in a wet track in the past, so I'm not using it as an excuse, but based on the speed that he showed and the way that he backed up, I think you want to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And now we get into softer company here, second off the bench. He's a horse who's run well at Aqueduct in the past, 7 times from 10 in the exacta. He doesn't have to have the lead, but he has a little bit of positional speed. So I don't think he's going to be completely outrun early on. And yeah, 4-1, maybe not great, but at the same time, I don't think it's an underlay. I don't think we're getting to the point of it being an unreasonable price. He was kind of where my eye initially went.
You basically made the points I was going to make. Back races and form that fit. Eligible to need the last. At least showed some speed on that sloppy track. Should also get a decent trip. Maybe the move here is to try to get them both in the number. Might mess around with playing. Essentially, I'll probably just leave the 5 in. Half tempted to leave out, but 4 with 1. 4-1 exacta boxed. 4 press up the 4-1 combination and then go 4-all-1 in case the one only runs third. Hope that they both get into the number and see if we can come up with something here.
How much of a fear is it for you when you take a look at a horse like Honor Up, who has effectively run call it 5 times in a year and a half? I mean, he's a 6-year-old now. He's getting, I don't want to say he's getting long in the tooth, but I mean, we're not going to be getting any better at this point. I think that's safe to say. I mean, how much of a concern is that?
It's a big concern, and it's why I feel like, what are we looking at price-wise now? I mean, 5-1 is better. It's why I was sort of hoping we'd get compensated, and it's a little risky for a horse to use in a little bit of a modified double key situation like I'm suggesting, because Honor Up could easily, horses like that with those kind of inconsistency and lots of layoff lines, they're liable to run last. It's not it's not the reliable sort that you were describing in a very different context that Midnight Bourbon is. A horse that you can like project a figure and you can be pretty confident a horse like Midnight Bourbon is going to run that figure. At least, you know what I mean? It's like we talk in fantasy baseball about floors and ceilings.
100%.
In relative terms, the Midnight Bourbon ceiling is the ceiling is high. Honor Up ceiling in the spot is very low. Excuse me, the floor is very low. So we'll see what happens. But I'm interested just in taking a little bit of a flyer. Big Engine, a horse I wouldn't mind also using in horizontals going forward. That might be a good way to press up that opinion where he's not coupled with Honor Up.
I mean, is there a scenario in which, and I think he's a little bit light on the price, all things considered, because this is going to be the toughest test of his career. But I mean, is there a scenario in which Foolish Ghost just runs away from everyone? I mean, obviously he's in good form. He's the kind of horse that I guess, based on time form, US's pace projected, they've got the 5 being reasonably close. But I simply put, I think it's a matter of, if you look at it from a quality speed standpoint, I just think the 2 is better quality, and I think he can just run away from him. I guess you'll find out in deep stretch, but and I'm not advocating for a 3-to-1 shot in a race like this. I think he's taking a little bit too much money. But I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility that he just streaks off and runs away from everybody?
Definitely not out of the realm of possibility. The thing that kept me from going that way was also the fact that another horse with decent pace figures in running with scissors has Kendrick Carmouche up. And I was just thinking Kendrick would be super aggressive, as is his want. And on the switch to Kendrick, the 6 might show increased pace figures. And that might be the scenario that really unlocks this for the 2 closers. But if Kendrick uses different tactics and it's just the long shot and Foolish Ghost up there, Foolish Ghost could get real brave.
It'll be interesting. I mean, these are always the types that pique your interest a bit when you get a number. And unfortunately, in my opinion, 3, you are at the underlaid price because of the fact that there could possibly be other speed. You're taking on much better horses. Typically that, to me, I want to get rewarded if I'm going to be right there, as opposed to taking the unknown. And to your point, the idea of, the really low floor, but the very, very high ceiling with the 1 Honor Up. I mean, Honor Up's best race, I think, is every bit as good as anybody else's in here. And yes, the fluctuation, the potential variance is great, but I'd rather take a shot on a horse that could return almost $20 that I think their best is as good as anyone's, as opposed to a horse who has to answer those questions that we just alluded to, and you're going to get a fraction of that price.
Throughout our little chat, Honor Up has gone from whatever it was 4 or 5 to 1, not 4 to 5, 4 or 5 to 1, out to 8 to 1 at the last flash. That's a betting pattern I don't mind at all.
No,
not at all. When they're catching money and then late, it just drifts up. That's an A-OK betting pattern to me. The 5 Aristocratic playing up a little bit going into the gate, but looks to be sorted out now. And yeah, we'll see. It's going to be fun to see how this pace plays out. I do think for the chances of getting the 1 and the 4 into the mix, I really do need a decent amount of pace up front. Hopefully the 6 will help provide it here. And then the 2 doesn't break.
Stumbled bad.
Yeah. So now that's all out the window.
Okay.
But interesting to see it, but Big Engine much closer than I think where I would have put in my reckoning. So we'll see. But that's going to certainly throw some chaos into the mix and make things very difficult for old Foolish Ghost, who's now out there chasing extremely wide and apparently has some run, but going to kind of need a miracle from that break.
Now, to be fair, that could potentially, depending on how aggressive they want to be at this point, that could help set things up. And it looks like they're going to be content to just sort of hang back there. But if they were really intent on trying to make some sort of a giant bid, that could have thrown a bit of a monkey wrench into the pace situation. Meanwhile, Aristocratic is not going away.
No.
At $1 million to 1.
No, but here's Kendrick, and now I think the 4 is finally running. We'll see if this 4 can level out and get the job done. Though Gemography is in with a shot as well. I think Big Engine's going to keep finding and pull this one out, and our 1 is not going to get up to make 3rd. So okay for the picks, not so good for the exacta and try. Very unusual race. Not what we thought we were going to be seeing there in Aqueduct 6th.
Well, and I tell you what, to me, that's the sort of instance where I would go back and if you're someone who believes a horse like Honor Up is, his best days are behind him, that's entirely fair. But I would look at this race and say, well, it didn't entirely play out the way that maybe I had envisioned it playing out. And perhaps with a little bit more of a speed duel signed on, maybe you ended up with something that could have helped, because it's not as though he wasn't running at the end. He came with a little bit of a belated
plugged
bid.
Along and got didn't look finished.
Now maybe that's all he is at this point in his career. Totally possible. I'm willing to acknowledge that. But again, if you are someone who liked him here, you're probably going to get a comparable price next out, assuming they're at this level again. Maybe something to factor in.
Very good ride from Jose Ortiz, by the way, there to be cognizant of what was going on and to keep the best horse in touch and not be completely at the mercy of pace. That could have gone worse for Big Engine, who ends up getting the job done at a halfway decent 8-5 for those who were willing to take that price. And Honor Up does end up rounding out the super and paying 10-1. So our thought process wasn't horrendous there, but doesn't do anything but set us up for some more disappointment later in the picks.
It'll be interesting to see what this does for the leaderboard, simply because, again, you got a decent enough price on the favorite, but I do know, it depends how you approach your strategic piece with these contests. I know some people will look at that horse and say, in all likelihood, he's going to be far too short for me to really be enticed to play him. Conversely, you are going to have some folks who say, you know what, he's the most likely winner. I'm not going to overthink this thing. Let me bank that 5 and change and hope that that's enough that either I get into, let's say, the top 10 so I can get some points, or I end up into a position where maybe I crack one of the top 2 and I can really, really be making hay.
Let's take a look at some of our comments coming in. It's a lot of stuff about the last race. Sorry, I missed that until it was off. But I will go ahead and just say hello to Tim and to Evan and to Lauren. We have a question from CJ Andrews. I know a guy by that name. Do you guys know where you're going to be next week for this? I assume that means which tracks. I'd like to think maybe we'll get a third track in the mix, and maybe that track will be Keeneland. And that'll accomplish a lot of things. I mean, you can see the 2 tracks is kind of a nice rhythm. We get a chance to go on plenty of digressions and things. 3, it'll probably be a little bit more of a fire drill, a leaner, meaner hour-and-a-half type show. But I'd like to see us being able to do that. And, all those tracks have deals with horse players, and that could be a lot of fun. So hopefully hopefully those will be the 3 tracks, if that was your question, CJ. If it was not, hit me up and let me know what it was you were asking. Feel free to jump in the contest. Matt just brought up an interesting question. What is your opinion out there, contest players, about playing a runner like Big Engine in an 8-race pick and pray? Will you do it? Is that a price too short? Is that a bridge too far for you? My inclination is, if you love the horse, take the points and try to get your outsized prices elsewhere, because I believe that in a contest, sort of like its own ecosystem. And sometimes there can actually be value in a horse like Big Engine because, yes, there's not a lot of points, but they're points a lot of people won't take. So they can be very valuable when it comes out late to separating contenders and getting valuable tour points and leaderboard points that are going to deliver you the prizes that you are after. We've got a leaderboard up here.
PTF,
John,
you run through this. I'm going to run to the bathroom.
Oh, do it. John Maslin. I think I called John Massian before. My bad vision getting the best of me there. Sorry, John. 79.60 in sole possession right now of first place. Jonathan Cummings, Truls Engbretson in third, Ciaran Thornton in fourth, Mike Gillum in fifth, Dan Kovaleski in that tie for fifth place, Ryan Carey, sole possession of seventh, David Browning, John Gasper, and Neil Metzger rounds out the top 10. Something we didn't talk about enough is the playoffs. And when Matt gets back, we'll go into this a little bit more, as well as we'll get back to that greatest honor point I wanted to make. But so one of the 2 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats you get by winning the tour, as we described. The other one will go to the winner of a tournament at the end of the year. We're calling it the playoffs. You have 2 ways of qualifying for the playoffs. You could finish first or second in a Horse Player Happy Hour Tour event any week, automatically through to the playoffs. Or the 40 highest players on the tour in terms of points who didn't finish in the exacta will also go. And then that's going to be a blast those last few weeks. We're going to start with 80 and we're going to have a cut down to 40. And then next week we're going to have 40 cut down to 20, 20 cut down to 10. And then those 10, this broadcast, we got to figure out the logistics of it. I can already picture poor producer Craig pulling out his hair as we try to arrange one of these StreamYard broadcasts with 12 people, or however we're going to do it. I don't know if you can do 12 people, but we'll figure it out. We're going to do it in a final table format reminiscent of the World Horse Player Tour. If you don't know what the World Horse Player Tour is, a fun TV pilot I was involved in a couple of years ago, and a concept I love that has a chance to ride again at some point in the future. But check that out. If you go to YouTube and put in World Horse Players Tour, you'll have an opportunity to watch. We did a little 2-minute sizzle reel, and we did a whole episode hosted by none other than TV's Matt Bernier. It was a ton of fun out there that day, and it'll be great to have that final table format back in virtual form at the end of these Horse Player Happy Hour events in some, gosh, I don't even know how long it is at this point, but several months' time, right before the Breeders' Cup, that'll be happening. Matt, you are back, and I wanted to get back to that point about Greatest Honor. So yes. Greatest Honor was a horse that I was loving early on and had a little bit fallen out of love with as of the last race. I heard the excuses for it. Coming off 2 races that weren't that fast in a row, I was concerned. But I heard on your show, you were talking before about the type of analysis you're doing and trying to identify horses who are running comfortably or horses who may have issues. And you were the first person I heard suggest that Greatest Honor might need. Well, I was hearing a lot of other people making excuses for the last run, and it was deliberate, and they wanted him to eat dirt, and da-da-da. You saw something you didn't like that ended up being fairly prophetic.
Yeah, and by no means do I was afraid to even tweet it out because I didn't want it to sound like I was taking a victory lap, because I'm not thrilled that the horse isn't going to be running, but at the same time, when you I think, when I bring up all these things that you see, or you look at patterns and progression in X, Y, and Z, this was a horse that going into the Florida Derby wasn't particularly fast in the grand scheme of things. He had an off the pace running style, and he apparently doesn't like kickback or doesn't love it. I mean, you've already put together a case for a horse that on any other day, on a Thursday at Belmont, you're looking at that saying, that doesn't sound like a great proposition. That was the case by itself. Then when you go back, and I hadn't really realized it until just prior to the Florida Derby, that was a horse that had run consistently and trained consistently since the middle of July as a 2-year-old. Right. Which nowadays is unheard of. We just don't see that with the modern racehorse, for right or wrong. I mean, it just is what it is. So when you had all of those things, and then you couple it with a run like we saw in the Florida Derby, where, say what you will, maybe it was taking on better company, maybe it was the unlike and not liking the kickback sort of thing. But when I hear someone like Craig Milkowski, the head figure maker from Timeform US, they had color-coded that racetrack at Gulfstream that day bright blue, meaning it was helpful to horses coming from well off the pace. And when I looked at that and then saw the Beyer speed figure, where he had paired up career best Beyers of 89, typically I think that signifies that we're ready for a forward move, and instead he regressed 4 or 5 points. I said, I'm putting all this together thinking this is a horse that he's not giving the impression that he's getting better. If anything, he's at best plateaued, if not starting to regress. And it just made me think that he's giving off every indication that he might need a bit of a breather here. And sure enough, the news came out yesterday that he's going to get a little bit of a break here. I don't believe, unless somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see that there was anything physically wrong. It's just that they're going to give him some time and bring him back as a fresh horse. And I think these are the sort of things that you're supposed to be looking for. Or, look, this is what you and I do for work. So we're always going to be really nitpicking and looking through, trying to find little things that may be significant things in the long term. For me, it was just one of those instances where I felt like there were enough things trending the wrong direction. Combine that with how long he has been in training. I thought maybe we were ready for a bit of a break. And sure enough, here we are.
Let's do a couple quick shout outs, and then we're going to move on quickly to this race at Gulfstream. Triple F, I'm going to call this commenter, suggests that these should be live pick events. I get the case either way, but I don't know. Because of the interconnected series of it, I thought that it just made sense to have this be an opportunity for a low buy-in to be a pure picking contest. There's a million live format contests. If you want to play in those, there's a lot of ways to do that. But for me, Matt, and I'd love to get your quick thought on this, it just made sense for this to be pick and pray, given everything we're trying to accomplish, and the fact that it's going to be while a lot of people are working, and you do the work the night before, and you're not at any kind of disadvantage. There's a purity to it that I thought was appropriate for this event.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I do look at it as well. We want as many people playing as possible, and a live format doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. You need to have the time to be able to focus on the live event as opposed to the pick and pray. You do your work, you plot out your strategy, and you just put the picks in and set it and forget it, and that's it. And you wait and see what happens. So I agree with you. I think this was really the only format for right now anyway.
Jonathan Owens says, we hope we get Keeneland next week. We're going to try. Super Forecaster will say hi to you. Regilius, we will say hello to you as well. Happy to see us back. And Regilius commented last week as well. That was cool. Trish has a question. We don't have time for a question because we are going to dive into this race at Gulfstream. There are just 2 minutes to post. And I'll tell you what, Matt, I'm already feeling how much more pleasant it is to do the shows with Gulfstream Park running to time.
Oh, my goodness. Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, I mean, but it just, I bring it up not to crab the old days, but just as a thank you to Aiden Butler and the team over there. It just makes broadcasting so much more pleasurable. And I think we can get a much tighter run of show and accomplish a lot more when we're not stalling because are they going to go or are they not going to go? Anyway,
yeah,
let's talk about this race number 7. We're on the turf going a mile, 3-year-old optional. Claimers, I'll let you kick this one off, Matt. Who did you come up with here?
Chow makes plenty of sense. I think the 2 and the 7, you could, you're kind of splitting hairs with which one you prefer. I would lean toward the 7 simply because it's the reclaim for Safi and the connections. I always look at the reclaim as a positive angle. And this is a horse who nearly got the job done in the most recent start and had a little bit of traffic trouble at the top of the lane. So I understand the case for the 7. If you want to try to get a little bit more creative, maybe the 4, Uncle Fun, who did finish ahead of Chow in the most recent start. You're getting 2 times the price on a horse who did, in fact, beat the horse who is now, taking all the money. So if you just want to look at it from that standpoint, I don't think that's a crazy way to approach this sort of thing. From a cash money standpoint, I would be betting the 4. Contest-wise, if I think the 7 is the most likely winner in here. And I don't want to give short shrift to the 2, Caratano, but, it's an instance where rallying into a slow pace most recently, that's great, and I want to upgrade you. But at the same time, I do think this is a bit of a saltier group that we're going to be running against.
I was going to try the pace angle with the 8 Halcyon Digest. Love Jaramillo on the front end. I didn't think this horse was too far behind in numbers and might be able to make up the gap with a trip out on the front end on the old Durf at Gulfstream, which we can occasionally carry that speed on the turf on the front end a little bit more than other surfaces. Did you give Halcyon Digest any shot?
Yeah, I mean, again, to your point, this is the controlling speed, or seemingly the controlling speed, and nearly got the job done in that most recent start. And if you want to look at it and say that's sort of the profile you want on this turf course down at Gulfstream, I'm not going to argue with anybody that takes that approach.
We'll see what happens here. Maybe we'll start on this question from Trish. New to the contest scene. However, from what I've seen, the top spots can sometimes be separated by less than $5. So if I truly think the favorite will win, I'll play the short price. Take the long price when you don't love favorites. I wouldn't bet them heavily in real life play. I mean, I think Trish's point is good. If definitely if it's the only way you can see, I have no problem going with those horses at the shorter end of the odds spectrum, even in a contest like this.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, if you are dead set on a certain horse being the winner, even if they're the chalk, no sense in trying to get around that. If you're looking for sort of a strategic approach to these sort of things, and I'll go back, we mentioned him at the top, Mike Baychok, he had brought up to me the idea of, for the first half of the contest, and keep in mind, this was years and years ago. I don't know if Mike has changed his philosophy or not, but this was when we were doing the Horse Players show. He brought up play who you like, who you think is going to win for the opening half. And then for that second half of the contest, look accordingly and say, you know what, if you think there's a chance that you can get creative and you can find a price, don't be afraid to go for it. But at the same time, don't just bypass a horse that you think is a likely winner just for the sake of bypassing him.
Halcyon Digest gets the lead here, easy as can be. Jaramillo so good out of the gate, doesn't have to shake the reins, just lets Halcyon Digest use that natural speed and cruising along out there. If I get beat from here, I get beat from here. But this is surely the trip that I was looking for. A little quick on the clock, though. 23, just over 23 flat. We'll see if he can just continue to run efficiently on the front end. I'm not sure Halcyon Digest is good enough to truly and properly gut this field.
I mean, I was going to say this is a relatively swift pace. I'd be curious what the second quarter looks like. If you can get it closer to 47, give him a puncher's chance. But I do, whenever you see, oh boy, hey buddy, we're going the wrong way, 45-4. I think it's going to be a big ask for him to be able to stick around throughout this thing.
It's going to be tough with Chow sitting that close. Just got to hope. Once in a while, you'll see this. It's usually at a higher class level where they're going so fast, but everybody else is going so fast too, and nobody wants to pass, and the racetrack carries home. That's my only shot. But in in-race betting, you would think it was just a question of who was going to be running me down, and looks like it might be the 5 here. If it's not somebody from farther back in the pack, and it looks like we have an accordion unfold here that might end up going
on
to
the inside.
Yeah,
come on, 4.
Yeah, you dove down to the rail.
Oh, that's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. It's hard. It's hard to tell with the angle. I think a very, very good price on this horse at 5-1. It'll be a shame if you didn't get his nose down, but
it's a good pick. Galloped out the best, that's for sure. Yeah, I thought it was unfolding to the outside. I missed the run down at the inside. I don't envy race callers.
Tell me. I mean, I think it is the most underappreciated job that there is in racing. I mean, to be able to give an accurate race call, I hope people understand how difficult that is. One race, never mind 10 or 11 in any given day.
Let's see if we can get another look here. We'll stay with this.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, I can't. It's noses up and down, and it's a hard angle. Evan thinks it was the 4, but we'll see.
Eleanor, it might have been.
Yeah, that was a better angle. That was probably a better angle. You might be okay. Eleanor asks, is the show on twice every Thursday? No, we're just on once every Thursday, but we do rerun. You got a lot of ways you can consume this. We encourage people to join us live, make comments, be part of the show. That's totally the most fun one. We'll have a link to go to the YouTube broadcast of it in future weeks. You can also follow via social media at Breeders' Cup Facebook page, my Facebook at Looms Boldly. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But then after the fact, we will archive it up on, I think we archive this on the In the Money YouTube page. And we also, I know we do a podcast version. So hopefully we're having enough evergreen type discussion in here that even folks not participating for the live stuff will go and listen back. We got a lot of nice comments on it. Back to that question about favorites very quickly. Chris Couples makes the point that especially in a pick and pray format, that taking any price makes a whole lot of sense. And there it is. Uncle Fun nosing out Big Blue. Major contest implications. I didn't realize Big Blue was as long as 17-1 in that spot. We're going to have time to see the updated leaderboard before we pivot to Aqueduct. Great chance also for folks to chime in and give a couple comments while we wait for this to come up. And hey, you just did. Do you guys mark young horses for races outside the Derby, like the Belmont or say the Travers? Thank you. Nick S. from the Cape. I assume that's I think he's one of yours, Matt.
I was going to say he might be one of my brethren.
and the answer is absolutely. I mean, I think the race we talk about the most, harkening back to when Practical Joke was a huge single for us in a very pleasing pick 6 a few years back. The race formerly known as the King's Bishop, the H. Allen Jerkins, is a race where this time of year you see a lot of horses that they're still dreaming Derby. They're thinking about going far, but ultimately they might be better cutting back. That's one race I know we talk about a lot. How about you, Matt? Are you how early on are you looking for horses for races like the Belmont or the Preakness or anything later in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I even go farther than that. I was down at Aqueduct this past weekend, and I happened to be in the paddock chatting with Maggie Wolfendale, and I brought up Proxy's name. And I know he's running this Saturday in the Lexington, but to me, I get so many vibes. I get vibes of two horses from this horse. One, I tweeted about it a few weeks back. He reminds me of Vino Rosso, a horse who is seemingly very, very talented, but at this point in his career hasn't put it all together. And also the horse that he's reminding me a little bit of, if you're looking at it from the home team standpoint, Mystic Guide was a horse early as a 3-year-old who always hinted at ability, but he didn't really put it together until he came back as a 4-year-old. And obviously we saw what he did in Dubai. So I look at a horse like Proxy and think he's running Saturday. Because of defections, at the very least, it looks like there's a real chance that he runs in the Kentucky Derby. I would love nothing more than for him to be put away for a couple months, give him some time, work on ironing out sort of the maturation piece from a mental standpoint, then bring him back and approach a summer campaign of the Jim Dandy and the Travers. Because I think from a talent standpoint, he may be one of, if not the most talented horse in this entire 3-year-old crop, not including Life is Good.
John Gasper makes a great point on this discussion topic. I love this idea. We'll try to do this every week where we have a discussion topic and bring people in. John, who's been on many contest leaderboard, knows this stuff for sure. He says the prices he'll play in the contest is contingent upon the amount of entries in said contest. In a 30 to 50 person contest, for example, happy to play shorter prices. In a much larger contest, say 150 plus, like, say this one, no 2-to-1 shots for him, because there's going to be too many prices that other people will have. That makes an absolute ton of sense. And I think it's one of those things that probably just comes down to your gambling personality and probably also what horses you like in other spots. But some people, when I say gambling personality, there are some people who view the world through always a lens of a value line and accounting for different possibilities that can happen. And that is, I think every horse player understands that, but some people really live it. And then other people, and I've fallen more and more into this group as I do more and more podcasts and TV, where I can't really come on and make compelling television if I tell you I want these 5 horses, depending on what price they are. No, it makes better television if I can come on here and be like, this is my pick. Now, a show like today, we're hedging a little and doing a little bit of both. But I think the more sort of selection-oriented you are, the more you might even in a 285-person contest say, hey, at the end, to Eleanor's point, at the end, it might come down to $5. Give me this 8-to-5. I can't lose. But I understand for sure for in a contest like this, what John's saying makes sense. And he piggybacks on that thought and says it also depends on goals and what the prize structure is. With a top-heavy prize structure, in other words, not that many points getting the ultimate goal, you need to have those longer prices. Whereas in a flatter structure where you're paying further down, maybe those $5 can mean more. Great thoughts, and I appreciate everybody chiming in. I haven't even mentioned yet how many people in this contest are going to be above the line to get goal number 1. Goal number 1 in here is to get into the Saturday Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge qualifier. And Craig, maybe if you scroll, it'll tell me exactly how many. Is it 28? The top 28?
28, yeah.
Yeah, the top 28 are going to win that $179 entry. So, early on, if that's your goal, you're going to play different than if your goal is to finish in the top 2 or on the tour in the top 10. It's going to create a lot of interesting game theory for players along the way. And there we see what's that cut line right now. If we keep going down to 28, the top of the leaderboard remains largely unchanged. Ryan McCarthy's second entry right now, part of a giant tie. It looks like at 46.40. So there's still, depending on what kind of prices you have in these last 3 races, there's an awful lot of opportunity for folks to get involved. We're going to follow it along the way. I will run down all 28 names at the end, as is our tradition. Happy to have so many of them. Thanks again. People are tuning in and out through this broadcast, and want to let people know we appreciate your voting with your dollar and your time and supporting us in this way I'm hoping this is just the beginning and we can keep these kind of results, or heck, even expand them. If you tell people about this event, let's get more people involved. I mean, theoretically, I guess it's not going to help your own chances, but there's bigger fish to fry. One of them is helping raise money for these charities, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. But the other is, when you vote with your dollar and support things like this that are horse player friendly, you tell people in the industry that you care and that you're paying attention to things like where your money is going and what the economic terms are. And the more we do that as horse players, the more we're going to be able to make a case to do more stuff like this. And we at In the Money Media have a lot of conversations going in a lot of different corners of the industry to get more horse player friendly initiatives. So tell other people to play early and often, and have fun with us all year long here on HorsePlayers Happy Hour. Okay, let's move on to Aqueducts race number 7. We're on the turf going 6, 3 and up, fillies and mares. Nice race, first level allowance types. And let's look at the prices here really quickly. This is interesting. This is a tough one for me, Matt, because the 9, Love and Thunder, super obvious, but I was leaning against just because this has such a prep race feel to it. Easily could gallop, probably is the best horse. But what about Too Sexy, the 6 at 5-1, now just into 9-2. This is another one, second off the long layoff, speed to get the right kind of trip. I felt like watching the tape of the last race that the extra furlong would suit her. It's not easy first time against winners, but it is a first level allowance, and the favorite has some questions to answer. I'm going with the 6. What did you think?
Yeah, look, I can certainly see that case. I think it's also something that I've kind of come across in time. Aqueduct's turf is very sort of horse for course centric. Some horses get over it, some horses don't for whatever reason. So I'm always going to be kind of looking around a little bit for horses who have run and performed well over the surface. The big thing for me with Too Sexy is that recency, having that start under her belt already. I think that certainly helps her cause here. To your point, is the 9 taking money because the 9 deserves to take money, or because it's first time Chad here in the United States coming from Gosden's barn? I'm not saying the horse isn't going to run well, but I think she's just overbet in a big way. I was a little intrigued with the 4 Go-Go Shoes. Haven't seen this one since the end of November last year at Aqueduct, going longer. But I like the fact that, to me, the best race thus far has come at Aqueduct from a speed figure standpoint. Yeah, maybe this is just a stepping stone. We're going to shake the rust off so we can get to something a little bit longer, whether it's here, whether it's at Monmouth Park, somewhere else. But I just thought from a number standpoint, this horse fit, and I thought you might get a little bit lost in the shuffle. She's 6-1 right now. She's not a likely winner, but I thought she was one to give some consideration.
I think we're on the right path here. This is a funny... This, I'm going to say, is going to make me sound crazy to people who aren't devoted toe board watchers. Is it possible that the 9 Love and Thunder is overbet and underbet at the same time?
Yes, totally.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
What I mean, before you start turning off your screen, what I mean by that is, overbet relative to what likely the proper chance is, and, maybe not strongly bet enough to have the kind of signal that indicates that this one is ready to fire. You feel like those Chad Brown horses ready to fire often are going to be hammered in. Now, granted, already into 6-5. I may be overthinking it, but I'm just talking about this to talk about this. I'm not the betting pattern on the horse has nothing to do with my decision. What has to do with my decision is just the idea that I feel like this one is kind of a big favorite by default. Probably will. I mean, Chad doesn't waste races. We know that, but it's a first level allowance race. I don't think, not going to be terribly concerned if the horse is a hard charging second or third. I think we've both got decent ideas against Love and Thunder, who goes to the stick here, as Jason Blewett like to say on the airwaves. I think we're right to try to oppose. I might double win bet and hope for the best.
Yeah, and again, Love and Thunder may be the most talented horse in the race. I'm not, don't get me wrong. I look at it and say, at even money, we haven't seen her since late July last year as a 3-year-old. Yes, she was coming out of group stakes races over in England, but at the same time, I just don't know that she has such an edge on this field that if she had a different trainer's name listed next to her, would she be even money, or would she be closer to 2-1 or 5-2 first time coming over here to the United States off such a lengthy layoff? It doesn't mean that she can't run well, but just from a value standpoint, I have a hard time sitting here saying, you know what, you should take evens on this horse when I have no idea if this is what she even wants. I think this could be nothing more than a means to an end. Shake the rust off and stretch her out, whether it's at Belmont or somewhere else next out.
This is also an angle that I have no data for, but it's just going by feel here. Ex Gosden, I love to bet a lot of the Euros coming over. Ex Gosden, I feel like isn't my favorite of those angles. Now, that might not mean anything, but I throw it out there as another reason why I'm not interested in what will ultimately probably be a 4-5 price on Love and Thunder, who may well gallop, but we're leaning elsewhere in this spot. What was your number again? The 4? And
yeah, 43 were the ones I was a little interested in. Rivendell, and it's a little bit too late for anybody to really take any action here. But I thought she was really good when she broke her maiden back last year. It was right around the 4th of July. And I wonder if she's one, if it's not today, maybe going forward, she can be more impressive.
We'll see. Go-Go Shoes right out. Go-Go Shoes has the Go-Go Shoes on right out there on the lead.
I would take this every single day of the week. I don't know if she'll last, but I mean, this is as good a scenario as I could have drawn up, even if she is going a little bit quick.
Yeah, I think it might be all right though. I mean, 22-2, they're only going 6. I haven't been paying attention to how fast the grass has been playing, but it's been a pretty dry week, which makes that time, maybe a-okay. Your Rivendell being asked, but certainly in a striking position. Where's the favorite here? The favorite is at the back of that leading group. In between horses has a whole hell of a lot to do. We've seen the Chad Brown runners look like they have rocket fuel in the stretch before, going to need it. Had a little bit of a trouble running there, running up in behind Too Sexy. What's going to happen here? Is the 9 going to split the 4 and the 6 for the trifecta? Not something like that, but I think that horse close on the inside got it. But good idea there. Very good idea from you and collectively from us to stay off the seeming free square there in Aqueduct 7th.
Big price, too. Big price, 10-1.
Yeah, that's terrific. That was good. That was good picking, and I'm glad you steered me. You steered me on that direction. We're gonna stick my nose in front for the day. We'll take it.
And I think something else, and I know Jonathan has talked about it in the past, and I think there is truth to it. This is a filly who, yes, she has shown a little bit of speed in the past, but typically that's going a route of ground. And even in some of her better routes, she's come from a little bit off of it. When you get a horse like that breaks like a shot and goes right to the top, I mean, usually I interpret that as a positive sign. And I believe I've heard Nick Tamaro talk about it as well with you, that when you see horses break very alertly, especially with horses who are typically maybe coming from a little bit farther off of it, I think you're probably looking at a big shot that they're going to fire on any given day.
Interesting. So the 9 Love and Thunder did backflash there at the end, 2-6-5. The 2 Magical Soul was that 3rd place runner under Junior Alvarado. I'd have absolutely no problem with Love and Thunder stretching out off that effort. Probably a very useful tightener and a runner who still could fit at the listed level, at least potentially in the USA. We'll see what they opt to do with her next. I would imagine another run in the allowance ranks, but just going a bit farther. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could see sort of a mile and 16th race at Belmont Park, something like that, where you get kind of that 1 turn-ish, 1.5 turn piece. I see no reason why she won't improve next out. And again, I mean, call it a little bit of redboarding here. File it away if you've never factored it in, especially at Aqueduct. Horses that run well at Aqueduct on the grass, they tend to continue on that path for whatever reason. It's a turf course that certain horses can really get over. Go-Go Shoes, her only other try on it was the last time out last year. She ran 2nd.
Go-Go Shoes gets the job done. Nice aggressive ride by Kendrick Carmouche. We were talking about his predilection for that type of run before. 10-1 winner from Matt Bernier. Good stuff. Thank you for putting me on that train. Muggsy, the handicapping Labrador alongside. She says it's dinner time. I guess there's nobody upstairs to feed her. I may have to take a break to deal with that.
Go ahead.
But let's do a couple more notes first from the listeners. We encourage folks to drop a comment to us, however you're watching. And I guess you can do it through Periscope or Facebook, I think. is how that works. But Mike Savage, who I had the pleasure of meeting him and his awesome family last week, it would have been a week ago, last Friday, opening day at Keeneland. He says he wishes he could participate, but he's at work. Hopefully he's listening to the podcast or rebroadcast. Come on, man. That's the whole point. The pick and pray. We just talked about it. You put up the 20 and you play. You don't have to worry about not watching live. Evan talks about a horse named Little Missouri, a Rusty Arnold trained horse that won at the Big A many years ago, getting out for the day. Always nice to get out for the day on those big long shots. Muggsy is coming over to harass me. She almost knocked over my light. So with that, before we have a major equipment fail, Matt Bernier is going to talk you through this leaderboard.
Yeah, I'll run you through the leaderboard. We're updated through Aqueduct 7th. Now, keep in mind, we've got 2 to go. Got Gulfstream's 8th and Aqueduct's 8th. Gulfstream 8 is about 10 minutes away, so we'll take them right from the top. And I saw the comment from JD in the comment section, rooting for the tough pronunciations, and we start right at the top. Truls Engebretsen. I apologize if I butchered that. 121.60 opening up on the field, getting a pretty comfortable lead here. David Browning is in second. John Gasper, who we've already touched on, is in third right now. John Maslin in fourth. Jonathan Cummings is in fifth. Mike Gillum in sixth. Stephen Lerma in seventh. Ciaran Thornton in eighth and ninth. A nice showing today. And Brian O'Keefe right now rounds out your top 10. Again, the top 28 folks, you will qualify for Saturday's BC qualifier. That's $179 entry fee. Obviously, also as part of this, we're dealing with the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour, with the top 10 getting points toward the year-long sort of point standing piece. So good luck to those of you who are still live with 2 to go in this spot. And those of you that aren't, I think this is a good opportunity to at least acknowledge that the beauty of the way this whole point system has been laid out is you only take the top 8 points, scores anyway, that you have for the year. Those are the ones that go toward the overall point standing. So just because you may have a poor showing on a few different occasions doesn't mean that you're totally out of this thing. You can continue to be involved and hopefully get yourself in a position where you accrue some points. And who knows, you only need a couple of them to really get yourself thrown into the mix of things. So we've got 2 races left to go. I'm going to veer off topic a little bit here. I keep looking. The Sox, I think, are losing 3-2. Not that some of you care. I mean, if you're not a baseball fan, you certainly don't care. If you're not a Red Sox fan, you don't care. And at the Masters, I keep looking up, and Jordan Spieth is in the woods multiple times, and I thought he was actually putting something together early on. So Rose, Matsuyama, and Harmon tied at the top of the leaderboard at 3 under. Rose is only through 12 holes, though. So anyway, we got 2 races left to go here for this week's HorsePlayers Happy Hour. If you're new to it, thanks for getting involved. If you are someone who has been involved with this thing going all the way back to a year ago when we kicked it off, thank you for the continued support. It means a great deal to us. And I said it last week, and Pete has brought it up in the past. These sort of things, these are only as good as the amount of support that we get. And from a horse player standpoint, I think the more we can do things that are horse player friendly, the only way that they're going to gain traction is by participation and people getting involved. So all of you who have accounted for the 284 entries this first week, thank you. And hopefully you'll come back and keep doing this throughout the course of the spring and the summer and into the fall, because these are the sort of things that the folks who have some say, the powers that be, they take note of these things. The more people we get involved, the better off. So if you're involved and you know folks who at least contemplated it or are thinking about getting involved at some point, please encourage them. If they have questions, sort of direct them toward me, direct them toward Pete, Jonathan, anybody else. We're all happy to answer questions and try to make this barrier of entry or barrier to entry for those of you who are relatively new to it, make it the learning curve is sort of easy as possible and as small as possible, because the more the merrier. And no, you're not going to be an expert overnight. None of us technically are experts. I think you're always learning. You're always trying to figure things out over the course of your lifetime. But I think this is just as good a chance as you're ever going to find to get involved for a low price point, learn on the fly, but also be participating and competing for very, very large, lucrative prizes. So I couldn't be more thrilled with this first week of the contest, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come.
Supporting a great cause while we're at it, too. Those
Yes.
are all great points. Mets fans, those of you who, when they were down 2-1 heading to the bottom of the ninth and we're about to drop to 1-3, you can come back off the bridge. All is right with the world. 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth for the Metropolitans, and now I'm sure those same people are back to dreaming of a ticker tape parade in October on this overreaction Thursday. But good stuff there. Good stuff there from the Mets. Good stuff from you, Matt, making great points, especially about if you have any questions. We've got a ton of programming, a lot of new people tuning in, and so to let us know a little bit more, more about our act, inthemoneypodcast.com. Matt, the weekly Matt Bernier show, diving deep into various aspects of the game, a chance to talk about a great chance to interact with what he's been doing on his YouTube page. You can watch, you can listen. I can't recommend it enough. I'm on there at least twice a week. We typically do a recap show early week, and then late week with video, we do a much more picks-based show. Come check that out as well. Loads of other offerings on there. If you're in the industry, if you're interested in industry news, we've got you covered there with the Owner's Box and In the Ring with Acacia Courtney. We've talked a lot about Thoroughbred Aftercare. We've got a whole show devoted to it, Off Track, with Maggie Wolfendale. We've also got along the player development lines, and another person who's excellent to ask questions to. He's read almost as many handicapping books as me, Spencer Lugenbuehl and Redboard Rewind. A lot going on, a lot to check out. We encourage you to go to inthemoneypodcast.com. There's more too. JK Plus One, one of a kind, in-depth interview show. Exactabox, our first foray into Spanish language broadcasting. Tons of good stuff. Make sure you check it all out. All right, let's do a little reset.
Not to go off topic real quick. Just with you, and I don't mean to rub salt in any kind of a wound, and to the other Mets fans out there as well. I'm only bringing it up. Oh, and as I say that, a disaster in left field. Matt Harvey has all of a sudden found himself. He's throwing a heck of a ball game today against the Sox down in Baltimore.
I mean, I'm going to put that down to a broken clock being right twice a day at this point. I mean, look what's happened to his. When you look at like the StatCast stuff on him, I mean, he's a shell. I mean, unless somehow today he found a way to turn that around. But yes, thank you for reminding me of watching that game at Keeneland. Was it Breeders' Cup? It must have been Breeders' Cup. Breeders' Cup Saturday night, the infamous Harvey game. It was deeply painful. I loved him. I mean, we've been so fortunate with DeGrom and what's happened, but it wasn't that long ago that the Matt Harvey days were something celebrated by Mets fans such as myself. No longer the case. I
had to throw it in there. That's all.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad I deserved it. We're Mets fans. We like to wear the hair shirt, self-flagellate, and we reminisce about whatever that was, Game 6 or Game 5 of the Game 6, right? Did they make it 6?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, of the World Series back in 2015. At least American Pharoah won. 3 minutes to post for race 8 at Gulfstream Park. This is our penultimate race on this inaugural HorsePlayers Happy Hour event. We've got the top 10 in this contest. They are going to receive tour points, the first ever tour points on the HorsePlayers Happy Hour Tour. The top 2 will receive an automatic berth into our playoffs. So it's great to have a prize for the top finishers. And then 28, the top 28, the cut line right now, Neil Metzger at $52. They will receive an entry into Saturday's qualifier, $179 contest. Of course, you can buy into that directly on horseplayers.com as well. But now we got a race to talk about, Matt. It is the 8th at Aqueduct. We are on the turf going about 7.5, 3 and up, fillies and mares, 25,000. I was interested in unmarked money a little bit in this spot. Catching money, hopefully that's a good thing. I just thought this one was interesting off the trip. I thought all things considered, Impossible Post going long first out. Unmarked money caught some money first out as well. That was a very, very rough trip. Should improve for the experience. I was dreaming of more than 5-1. I'm not going to lie, but this might be a case where there's some signal in that number. I'm sticking with unmarked money to win. We got a heavy favorite here with the rail runner at 9-5. Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I mean, I had earmarked Kahiko, but I mean, this is just a terrible price for this horse, and maybe there is some signal there as well. I mean, this is first time going out for a new barn, but at the same time, I just horse doesn't have that much of an edge on anyone in here to be taking that kind of money. I was interested in All's Fair, the number 8, going out for Michael Matt's first time being dropped in for the tag. You get an equipment change. The dangerous thing with a horse like this is that I haven't seen a heck of a lot of running through the 2 lifetime starts. Now, maybe the class relief will be the thing that wakes this filly up. Maybe the equipment change will wake her up. I think you're banking on one of those things happening if you're going to be dabbling at a price like this. If it's not her, I guess if I'm going to just be held down to a pick in here, I'll go with the 6 Starry Hope, in the hope that we have a forward position. She's not all that fast in the grand scheme of things, but I think she's fast enough that she can be up, be prominent throughout. And for whatever reason, maybe one of these other fillies doesn't really fire. And we've seen horses, again, depending on the pace situation, if it's a little bit more on the tepid side, maybe she can get a little bit brave out there. So given the price, I was torn between the 6 and the 8. I'll go with the 6 because of the tactical edge. I'll take Starry Hope.
Makes perfect sense to me. Horse Tickets chimed in for week 1. I'm rooting for the tough pronunciations for Matt and PTF. I wonder if that's a theoretically difficult to pronounce name on the leaderboard. We'll have to see if you're still watching.
It's right now our leader, and I brought it up to JD made the comment, and I stumbled through our leader's name. I did my best, and I apologized if it was. Is
it Truls Angus Bretson? That's what I've been saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, you did a heck of a lot better than I did.
No, I butchered it. I put an S in that wasn't there. I think I got it the first couple of times though, Truls. You'll have to let me.
However it is, it's better than what I did. I can promise you.
What else do we got here? We've got Irish Dan, who I missed at Oaklawn this year. Was hoping to get back to DeLuca's so I could drunkenly tell him it was the best several times. Inside joke, but you can probably figure it out. He says my long national nightmare is over. I don't know. Maybe he means that HorsePlayer Happy Hour is back. Maybe he's a Met fan. I don't know what's going on. We've got Evan Betmott underneath here. I'm sorry, host fail. I've lost track of races. Was that a different race, or is Bill Mott have a runner?
I think that was the Aqueduct Turf Sprint.
That makes a lot more sense. Does it take top place from each competition? If you have 3 entries, does it just take the top places in general? I don't think I understand that question, but it might be that I've just been talking for too long. Do you understand that question, or do we need a little clarification?
No, Jonathan, if you're there, I would a little bit of clarity on that, I think, would go a long way for us.
I will give this. The top 2 make the playoffs every time. The top 10 score tour points. But I think there's something else being asked in that one. Triple F looking for the 7 to get the job done here at 7-1. Lon Garfield Jr. says, hey, horse players. Hey, back, Lon, from all of us. Chime in, ask us any questions. What do we got? We're actually, the time pretty well flies. I have to say, Matt, I can't believe we're down to just 2 races left. After this 8th at Gulfstream, we'll wrap things up with race number 8 at Aqueduct, a maiden claimer that we'll get to in a minute. But I'm pretty happy with the ideas we have in this spot. This feels like a real nice contest race where there's a lot of logical runners who are going to return points. The people high up on the leaderboard, they have an extra horse running for them. They've all got the 1 as well, because that's not going to change things very much with the leaderboard being where it is. So it will be a lot of people out there rooting for the favorite, even if they don't have the favorite on their tickets. And then a lot of people hoping to make the pole vault into the lead. We'll see what happens here as they go to post for Gulfstream's 8th.
Going back to a little bit of the strategy conversation that we had a little while ago, I think also things that I at least factor into play are the number of races in the contest. The fewer the number of races, you've seen some of these early feeders or early qualifiers, day of events, there's only 6 races. You got to get points up there. I mean, if you love a price, so be it, but you got to be scoring it to have any chance to get in, because there's just not that much room for you to be able to say, I can wait down the road. No, you got to score now. But I do want to just at least throw the idea out there that when you have large fields, and we can use today as an example, I do think there is an element of you're better off being a little bit more aggressive and taking some chances. I'm not saying just completely throw out the favorite if you think the favorite's going to win, but just from a percentage standpoint and a probability standpoint, the likelihood of you going, let's say it's a 12 race contest or a 10 race, make it nice and round. The likelihood of you going 7 for 10 is very, very slim, because most of those horses are going to be sort of in your, 2 to 1 to 4 to 1 range. Whereas there is a chance for you to go 1 or 2 for 10 with a couple of cap horses, and you're going to leapfrog the folks who have won more than half of the races being run in the contest. So I think you do need to think a little bit more about game theory, especially if you are someone who is new to this whole thing.
Yeah, the math can definitely favor that type of an approach. We're off here, and it looks like they're going real fast. I haven't seen a fraction yet, but just based on the visual and how strung out they are. 23 flat for these. That's probably fast enough. Are our horses anywhere?
Yeah, I'm sitting perched just off the 3. I'm in second right now. I mean, I'd love them to be able to back it down a hair, but it looks like a pretty strung out field. I don't know if that's actually happening or not.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the 4 is I can't. It's funny. I see the 4 chiclet, but I don't see the 4. Might be too far back. Pretty even fractions. The 23 and the 46. Starry Hope's in a nice spot, though. I have to say, I don't think I would trade with that runner here. Given
I just don't know if she's got any. I don't know if she's got any run left. The 1 is really rolling. Here's Kahiko, the horse taking all the money. Hopefully, Starry's got a little bit of something left in the tank. I don't know if she does.
It's gonna be tough. This 3 to 2 shot's gonna win like a 3 to 5 shot in the end. It looks like it doesn't seem like they got any kind of run at all from my pick, the 4. Yeah, that one. The people who were already in a good position, very happy to see Kahiko roll like that. Runs out a very easy winner for the winning team of Sweezy and Lopez, and sets us up for just one more race in this contest. It's another good contest race, though. I'll say that if you can get past the favorite in this Aqueduct race, there's a whole lot of things that can happen. We've got 10 minutes to that one. If we when we get to that, we have a couple other detailed questions about the rules. We have printed rules on the Breeders' Cup site. I will get better versed on exactly how the tiebreakers and the multiple entries and things like that work. I don't have it in my brain right now. We did talk about it all. There's an email chain, but we'll get that all clarified. If you can't wait for an answer, though, go to the rules. Meanwhile, in between weeks, I'll dig and we can answer that question about how the tour points work with multiple entries and all that stuff. I would have a feeling whatever we decided was the simplest way to score it. So hopefully that's not going to offend anybody's sensibilities. Unless you care to expand on that, Matt, we'll leave it where we can come back next week and ask specific rule questions, and I'll be better prepared for them. We had a lot of lifting to do today, and I apologize for not being able to quote it all chapter and verse right now, but it's not like we didn't address it. It's all in the rules.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, it's as simple as I don't want to misspeak and say something that's not accurate. So correct. I'm going to bite my tongue on that. Again, you can find the full rules over on the Breeders' Cup webpage, but we'll have something a little bit more, tangible right in front of us. It's just, again, when you got 2 hours of stuff going on, we're trying to look at a million different things on top of whatever the other daily pieces are. So, but yeah, again, for me, it's just more a matter of, I don't want to say something that may end up being incorrect off the top of my head. So apologies for that, John.
Carolyn wants to know, is there a special prize for having none of the picks hit the board?
Hit the board? None of them. I like that.
That's hard. That's hard to do. I think that used to be an Amarillo Slim sucker bet at the racetrack, where you find somebody and you offer them a price. You tell them you just have to pick one horse all day that doesn't hit the board in every race. And I forget how the odds work. I'll have to look this up. It's probably in Slim's book, but that was the idea. It sounds easy, right, to pick one horse in every race that won't hit the board, but actually with 8 tries, it becomes very difficult, and the odds flip. So
that is such a fun idea.
Yeah.
That like, so I'm immediately thinking of my buddies like Saratoga or something like that. Typically, I'll throw in with them, you throw in 20, 40, $50, whatever it is for like a show parlay.
Love the show parlay at Saratoga.
Now we can do that. Or then we also have a head-to-head piece where everybody puts 20 in and you got to identify one in each race that won't hit the board. And then at the end of the day, whoever's still alive, you chop it up.
Splits the money. That's a good idea. It's a good
idea.
That's
fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never thought of that. That's amazing.
Well, thank you, Carolyn, for suggesting that one.
I like that.
All right, let's see.
I'm going to steal that. I will credit Carolyn from now on. But
I'll join in. It could be the Carolyn pool. Evan says, bet the 7 in Aqueduct race 7. Which one was that?
That race, the Turf Sprint.
That race is already run. So that was
my horse that wired the 4-horse.
There you go. There. Oh, okay, great. Well, that's extremely wise. John says he just read the rules. All the entries count individually. So in other words, you can score multiple points, which is actually kind of interesting because it means, in theory, I mean, this isn't going to happen, but in theory, you could probably you could money on the tour playing in 3 weeks. If you went triple barreled with 3 entries. One thing I do know, pursuant to this multiple entry idea, you can get multiple entries to the playoffs, but you can only one will qualify for the final table because it would mess up our format way too much to have more than one entry at the final table. So anyway, we'll read the rules. We'll go over it. We'll be able to quote that chapter and verse. But John, thank you very much for doing my job for me. But it's not like I was sitting on my hands here. I already released 2 podcasts and did 2.5 hours live. So I'm not exactly calling myself a shirker, but I do appreciate the added help. Okay, let's look at this leaderboard. Heading into our last, we've got 2 players in pretty strong shape. We've got Truls, who's been active in the comments, and John, who's been active in the comments. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe there's some sort of reverse jinx where if you participate in the comments, you do well in the contest. But their roles are not secure. We have got some people nipping at the heels who have different runners in this last race. David Browning drawing very live to get up into that exacta, as is John Maslin, who's been our leader a good portion of the way. They've both got nice prices. I'd start having to do some math on the fly, which is always dangerous if Siren and Jonathan Cummings, also having the 2 and the 13, have an opportunity to leap up in there. I'll say another thing that's fun, just apropos of nothing, but just a thought that popped in my head, with the ability to see the picks in a pick and pray event. It can help you in your own cash wagering. It's a myth that contest players aren't also playing cash along the way. If you have a player you follow, somebody you know is good, you can see who, Matt Bernier likes in the last race, and it's a spread race, and in your pick 5, it's an opportunity to throw that horse in. Another interesting way that tournaments and cash play can cross-pollinate for one another. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out here in this last race at Aqueduct. And I agree. It seems like it might be an interesting opportunity for a long shot. The horse I liked bet a little bit more than I thought. What do we have here? We've got a mile on the turf for 3 and up, maiden 40 fillies and mares. I like the 9 Kubi Joe. I thought it was a eye-catching jockey booking, Trombetta attracting Castellano. The form on offer is not bad at all relative to this group. And then I did a little pedigree digging. The dam ran her best fig on turf, and the sibling ran its best fig on turf. I thought Kubi Joe made a ton of sense in an open race. 7-2 doesn't get the motor running, but that's my pick, and I'm sticking with it. What do you think, Matt Bernier?
Yeah, so in kind of a weird contradictory way, I had mentioned I don't love the horses who are kind of career maidens. I don't think there's a ton of speed in the race. I mean, there's a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be going crazy out there. The 7 Cherokee Song, who's 0 for 20, 0 for 11 on grass, is a horse who has a little bit of early foot, is going to be transitioning back to the turf here. And the best runs for this one, in my opinion, on grass have come at Aqueduct. And I'm not suggesting this is a likely winner, but I could see a scenario in which this one at least sticks around for a piece. When it's all said and done, I have to assume we're going to be aggressively ridden out of there and get some forward position. I don't know if it's going to be enough to clear off to the lead, But I just thought this one was a little bit interesting with the surface change. I think getting back to the preferred turf at Aqueduct as opposed to Belmont, not that she's run poorly at Belmont in the past, but this would be where I would almost kind of, again, contradict what I had said earlier, in that I think you can at least draw up a bit of a scenario in which maybe she runs a race that's good enough to at least get a piece of this thing.
Yeah, there's no room for dogma in horse playing. I mean, having rules that you never break is going to get you, I think, in more trouble than it. The mental clarity it gives is you're going to take away in terms of missing potential opportunities. And this runner, if you take out all the dirt races and you take out the higher level maiden races on the turf, you're left with form that's very competitive. And I always like that angle of getting back to the preferred surface, especially at this time of year. It's a good angle at Aqueduct at this time of year. You'll see horses who either have maybe come off a layoff and have one dirt race that was essentially a prep for the turf season, or one like this who just hasn't been out on turf in a very long time. You go back to that 93 Timeform US rated race in that November 8th run. That wins this, doesn't it?
I mean, it at least puts you in contention. And I think that's what I'm looking for in sort of these. I mean, this isn't a low. This isn't the lowest of the low, but I mean, it's a lower level maiden claimer. That's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Just any kind of inclination that you could possibly win, and you have the running style that I think is going to be advantageous. I've said it, I sound like a broken record. You find very often that these horses at these lower levels, they just don't want to pass other horses. So I would much rather be in a forward position where, even if I'm not outright on the lead, maybe I inherit it from a horse who just gets tired and throws in the towel at the top of the lane or rounding the far turn. And then somebody's going to have to come and run me down. So given the price, and I mean, now she's starting to come down a little bit, which I wouldn't take anything less than the 6. Even the 6 is debatable how appealing that actually is. But I just think there are enough reasons for me to look at a horse like this and say, in a group that I don't love anyone, I think there are some positives that would at least draw me in this direction.
The difference makers in terms of who's going to land in our exacta and qualify, be our first 2 qualifiers for the playoffs, are the 2 My Girl Blue and the 13 Daily Briefing. Just taking a quick look back at those 2 runners, Matt, curious to see which one you'd prefer. For me, it would be the My Girl Blue pick, off a long layoff, but just breeding wise, and the fact that this one has turf experience. The 13, I'm not too sure about pedigree wise, and that's a tricky post potentially out there. So of the 2 difference makers, it would be My Girl Blue for me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try on the fly to pull up the numbers for Wicked Strong as far as the grass is concerned, because I do think there's at least a scenario in which, you go back to the career debut, this one was washed off the grass, and I don't know if this was an MTO or a horse that was meant for the turf. But I do find those sort of instances intriguing. This one showed a little bit of speed, albeit in a race that featured a snail's pace. In that most recent start, first off the bench, you'd assume you got a little bit of fitness and maybe you move forward. Second off, again, trying to do this on the fly, it makes for great listening whenever
we call it stallifying. You just sort of say words while you're looking something up.
Yeah, here we go. So we get to the far outside here. We pull up Wicked Strong. If, of course, now it's just not going to take to it. But I would at least venture a guess to say, put it this way, if you're not sold on the proven commodities, including the deuce, I could see a case for the 13.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens here when they break. Jose is with me on the 9. Good luck to us. John Erickson quips. He based on the results, he spent too much time looking at the rules and not enough on the past performances. Don't worry, there's time. There's time, especially with all those entries counting. That's that many more chances you have to move.
Oddly enough, Wicked Strong is a pretty decent turf route influence.
That's interesting. I would not have guessed that. What are the numbers you're seeing?
14% with turf routers, 24 for 165. You're looking at more than 60 of them hitting the board. So you're just a shade below 50% as far as in the money runners are concerned. And I don't know if this is just sort of an anomaly based on the numbers or not. 1 for 46 in turf sprints. So they're much better based on number. Look at these 2 on the front. Neither of them can take the turn.
Not a pretty first turn here.
No, and look, 9-2 on Cherokee Song. I really don't like the price at all. But this is a scenario that I like. And this was kind of the idea that, you know what, maybe you're forward enough where the deep closers, I don't trust any of them to pass me. And these two on the front, going hammer and tong, ding donging out there, I can't imagine either of them sticking around for the duration of it. Maybe you just inherit this thing at the top of the lane.
I'll be mad if Lady Thornhill wins, because this was an angle I just alluded to, potentially. The idea of a horse for like more of a turf meant barn donk, turf meant trainer, who gives a maiden special on the dirt and then runs on the turf. But this thing can't hold on. Can she? It just went too fast, moving too awkward. Some runners coming into it here. The 11 looks to be leveling off to make a run. My 9 down at the inside.
Change lead 7. There you go.
Yeah, the 7 is looking all right from here. My 9's running, but chance to run out of room. Lady Thornhill, though, very tough, pushing back. I get a seam late, coming up the wood. Let's see what happens. I got a chance to have a really thrilling finish here.
7-9.
7-9. Not too bad.
There's your number right there for you. That's a walk-off if I've ever seen one.
Good pick by you, Matt. And we gave him the little exactor as well for our Canadian listeners. Hopefully some folks followed us in there.
$55 exacta.
Yeah, not bad at all. And great picking by you today. What'd you have? A couple 10-1 shots. I mean, that ain't bad if you're coming in and following along. And that's going to be a big part of these shows. We'll be gambling along with you, and hopefully we find some nice winners along the way. Certainly not a bad little result there. And I wonder if that one can't do better next time. A little bit more settled down early, another run under the belt. I mean, doesn't look like thrilling form, but just for the level, everybody gets their turn to graduate. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to we're not going to have much of an end show, but obviously we'll wait. We're going to read those 28 names out, and we'll see what happens here. But with this result, the 7, is this gonna shake up our top 2? What price is this horse in the end?
Ended off at 4.5 to 1.
Okay, so roughly what, 14, 15 is going to be able.
Well, and then the runner-up, what was your price? 3?
Yeah,
so
yeah, the top 2 I think are. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The top 2 are safe.
Well, and the winner is actually opened up even more because he had the 7 or she had.
Oh well, there you go, Truls Engebretson gets the job done here. That's a stylish way to end on a fantastic score.
That's a hell of a day. I mean, just going through, you've got a $30 horse, $20, $12, $22, and now an 11 or so. I mean, that's a big day out of an 8-race contest.
Yeah, it's very big. Hopefully, Truls was betting along. The Scandinavian name and the power of Thor's hammer throughout this debut event for Truls in this spot. 9-2 over 3-1 in the end, with Wicked Happy checking in third. Oh wow, Lady Thornhill did all that running and doesn't get to hit the board. That's unlucky if you back the 1 in this spot.
To your point though, I mean, that's one where I would probably consider throwing her in some sort of a horse watch or a stable mail, because she was as keen early on as she was. She blew the first turn for all intents and purposes, and she still was in with a chance at the end of it. So to me, this is the level for her. She's a 40 maiden. And if you get her to just kind of relax a hair, still want to use that speed, but if you get her to just take a breath, I think she's at least, she probably is in with a chance in that race. She already was.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. And the Donk barn, they run hot and cold. And especially when that barn gets going again, one who definitely makes sense at this level at some point.
Yep.
We'll make that condition. You would certainly think. All right, we're just waiting for this thing to go official. We'll wrap it up. We'll already tell folks to think about joining us next week. This was fun. It's going to be interesting doing the 3 tracks. We didn't have time to preview the weekend doing 2. Obviously, some weeks there's going to be races such that maybe we'll do a little less interacting and a little more previewing. Really quick, can anybody beat this horse in the Arkansas Derby?
So the way that I drew it up is if he is going to lose, and I would be very disappointed if Florent Giroux and Brad Cox didn't plan on being on an absolute push Send Cotto River at all costs. I don't care if you go 22 flat for the opening quarter, because I'm of the opinion he needs the lead. If he doesn't make the front, I don't think he can win. And I think that's the only way the Concert Tour gets beat. But yeah, I mean, look, it's not an interesting opinion. I think it's Concert Tour and Cotto River.
Let's look. We've got some international viewers. Let's see if there's any pricing up for this race, because sometimes these shorties, they offer excellent value in places that are able to bet fixed odds. It just went official. I'll look this up really fast, because we're not going to stay on here any longer. I would
just be, while you're looking it up, I'd be stunned and disappointed if they didn't ride Cotto River to make the front. I had no problem with the way the race played out in the Rebel. I really didn't, because I'd rather find out early than late that I absolutely have to have the lead. But now that you know that and you're still going to push on with it, if he's not on the lead, I'm going to be very disappointed, unless there's a terrible start or something like that.
Totally agree. 4-9, the current price for Concert Tour. I mean, that's the right price. That's about right. Yeah, that's not going to get me. I'm not calling friends overseas to back it. But I'm not laying it either. No. 9-2, Cotto River and Hosier. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a race where there's a whole lot of betting action in my.
I would say, though, I feel like Cotto River will be shorter here than that. So if you are interested in him, I don't know that that's a terrible number to lock in.
No, I would agree with that. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at these numbers. Our final leaderboard update. Our first players to earn points as predicted. Truls Engebretsen gets the job done, 139.50, and rounding out the exacta qualifying for those playoffs for that exclusive roughly 80 runner contest to win a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat at the end of the season. John Gasper running it down from there. The tour point winners, David Browning, Mike Gillum, John Maslin, Brian O'Keefe, Daniel Mustari, that great name in Chicago contest players, Mustari making an appearance, Wayne Tam, Ciaran Thornton, and Jonathan Cummings. Those are the first 10 tour point getters, rounding out the list of folks to feed in effectively to the qualifier on Saturday on horseplayers.com. Stephen Lerma, David Dalton, Ciaran Thornton again, Carolyn Stovall, Kevin Kilroy. Speaking of all the fours, one of the guys, one of the gang of four, infamous gang of four from the NHC Tour a few years ago. David Burke, Ed DeRosa, our pal, getting his name up there. David Brownfield, another pal. Michael Baychok, good to see Ryan McCarthy up there as well. Rory Arnold, Rocky Hardy, fantastic name. Neil Metzger, Daniel Edwards, Ryan Carey, Alistair Walbaum, another fantastic handle, and another who qualifies as a friend, Danny Kovaleski, and rounding things out, Anthony DeCaspers. Congratulations. We will follow your progress. We'd love to hear the stories. If you qualify for a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat and you started your journey in this event, we want to hear from you. We might even have to have you on, actually. I'll go ahead and say that right now. Let us know. I could see doing some little couple of minute pre-tapes or something with people too that we can edit and throw in here to make those dog feeding / bathroom breaks / getting other beer drinks breaks a little bit easier as the show goes on. Matt Bernier, any thoughts as we wrap up this first edition of the 2021 Horse Players Happy Hour?
Hey, look, I thought this first go through was about as good as we could have hoped for. And again, appreciate everybody getting involved. Appreciate the Breeders' Cup and everyone for giving us the opportunity to sort of, I don't want to say live out what we had thought it could be, but let it all come together and hopefully give horse players an opportunity to take advantage of what I would consider all around a positive expectation situation, where whether it's the prize pool, whether it's the weekly feeder to get into the Saturday contest, whether it's the charitable aspect of it to aftercare, I just think all around this is something that could be for the benefit of all parties involved. So really, really pleased with, I'll steal a word from the English folks. I'm chuffed by,
well chuffed.
Yeah, well chuffed by the way week one went, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Congrats again to Truls and John, and then we do our thank yous, and we'll start with you, my man Matt Bernier. It's such a pleasure to be back sharing airwaves with you, our friends at the Breeders' Cup. I mean, how great are they? Especially the new daddy himself, Peter Rotundo Jr. what a pleasure to have worked with him at the Breeders' Cup over these last couple of years, and somebody who's not just great to work with, but also a friend. Thank you so much, Peter Jr. and everybody over at the Breeders' Cup, our friends at horseplayers.com as well. Love this project. Excited to see where it goes. Producer Craig Gorbanoff, DJ Unstable himself. We made him work hard today. He did a fantastic job pushing all the right buttons there in the studio. JK, let's throw in a thank you to him. We'll get to him again at the end for his company role, but he's been influential behind the scenes. And when he's not traveling and when he's not on TV, he will be joining us for some of these shows. Looking forward to seeing his mug as well. That's going to do it. This show's been a production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. Over at In the Money Media, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. There's that guy again. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.